Secrets. This morning we have Paul Preston from Agenda 21 Radio is going to be joining us. He has, I've been on his show a couple of times, and I would say that he is one of the most informed people on, the MAGA, and they run a thing. It's called MAGA, Make America Great Again, Political Action Coalition. So incredible, deep insights. I mean, I've got a lot, obviously, 35 years in the SEAL teams at the highest levels, and in the CIA, traveling all over the world in combat zones, some of which are getting hit right now by Iran as the war escalates there between us and the Iranians, trying to take them out of power. So he's got great insights. I mean, I've been on, like I said, been on his show, and he has come forward with information that I didn't even know. So he is extremely well informed, and he's going to be talking about some very important things, I think, that's going to help America going forward. We, the people, get up to speed and so forth. So without further ado, we have Paul. He's in the he's backstage right now. We're going to bring him up here in a second. But, like I said, the Iranians are, hitting us in Jordan, hitting our bases, air stations in Jordan. I've had a couple of service members that have died, many that have been wounded severely. One's missing. So this is a developing story. So we knew that this would probably get to this point where American service members would start to be, killed, unfortunately. So that's kind of where we're at. But this all stems all the way back, like President Trump has said, 47 years ago. He even said, I think 30 years ago, he was talking about, and I bet Paul probably knows some of this, where he was saying that we are going to have some problems with Iran if we don't deal with this now. And this was like 30 years or plus back, before he was in political office, way before he was in political office. So he has been on the front lines. Paul Preston with Agenda 21 Radio is on the front lines, informing us and keeping us up to date. And Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, Michael, it is absolutely a pleasure and an honor to be with you, and especially at a time like this, in our nation's history. It's pretty an epic time right now.
No doubt. And I was informing the audience that, I've done a couple shows with you, and I am stunned with your background knowledge and historical, overview of what's going on in America right now. And you guys have really been pushing the envelope, keeping people informed and bringing people up to date to what's really going on agenda-wise.
Right. Well, the New California State Movement has helped a lot in terms of, pushing our efforts forward to inform the public, because we're one of the solutions to a big problem. But this problem has been growing for a long, long time. And as you were talking about, that this has been a 40+ almost a 50-year deal with Iran, but I would actually say it's been much longer than that, predating World War II, with Adolf Hitler and his visits to Iran, or actually it was Persia at the time. And Adolf Hitler's influence cannot be, it's felt today in what's going on with Iran, because it was Adolf Hitler who sort of got enamored, the Shah at the time, who was this same Shah Pavarotti, who was the Shah of Iran in 1979. He just got older, but he enamored him and impressed him so much that the Shah at the time gave him the title Hitler Shah.
Wow.
And ultimately that ended up to be Hitler's main history in Persia, because what happened was he declared that the Persian people were the perfect Aryan race. And so the Shah of Iran actually changed the name from Persia to Iran in 1936 in honor of Adolf Hitler.
Oh my God. Wow. Like I was telling the audience, your historical background and knowledge is like second to none. I've never heard anybody, talk about some of the things that you talk about. So another great reveal on this. So, wow. So do you think the son of the Shah, Pahlavi, he's still within that category of maybe influenced by Nazi type of?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
I really don't think so.
Good.
But that's what's something's going on there with the son. But I think he just wants his place back as the Shah. It seems to me that the Shah of Iran kind of learned his lesson after World War II about what was going on with Adolf Hitler. And I think there was some regrets there, but because he leaned much more towards the United States than anything else after that. And he still had his, the British were still a big influence, even the Russians to some degree, but the Iranians were trying to stand on their own and they couldn't do it. So big deal happening.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Iraq, and the Iranian influence was devastating, to speak lightly, of events. Many service members, U.S. service members, on the mullahs that were there, and they destroyed temples and so forth that really inflamed and caused a civil war to break out. And that's all Iranian influence.
Well, yeah, and again, keep in mind this is the Persian Empire you're dealing with, really, and of course, what you have right now, the holdovers at the Iraqi Guard and Republican Guard, I guess they're called. Is there the Iranian Republican Guard? Is that what they're called? The IRG.
Right.
They are Nazis. They are real Nazis, and that's what they have to be looked at as real Nazis. And they were the ones that, as communist Islamists, overran the embassy in 1979 with Jimmy Carter being president. And again, you can't look at the Jimmy Carter era as an era of strong military force by the United States or a strong United States. It was very much weak. Jimmy Carter really was a early Barack Obama to this country, is who he was. He was selling out like crazy. He sold out the Panama Canal for $1.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go back and connect the dots, and see which presidents had what kind of connections where. And obviously, Jimmy Carter had some very, very odd connections, and one of them was obviously to give away the Panama Canal. And then also he gave away everything to Iran. And I think he knew what he was doing. I thought it then. I remember back then, because I was way into all this stuff, historically speaking, I always have been. But I can remember that back then that I was telling people, this is a Nazi thing going on. Real simple, and the Nazis never, went away after World War II. In fact, we're now living in what's known as the Fourth Reich. Adolf Hitler survived the bunker. I was at the bunker in Berlin in 1992, and Christoph Neubauer, the guy who was very heavily involved in the Hunting Hitler series, and Peter Levenda, he wrote the book called The Rat Line. I think if people want a perspective, they need to get a perspective by reading his books, The Rat Line, and also The Hitler Legacy, which is what we're living in right now. He dials it in, you read it, and it's all right there. And it tells you all the connected dots to the CIA, to everybody around the world, and especially in Indonesia. Indonesia's got all the wealth of the Germans and also of the Chinese when they took over, or when they lost the Silk Road to Japan. All that money was transferred over. All the gold and wealth was transferred to Indonesia. And so that Indonesia kind of runs the Nazis around the world. But it was a real clear case of after World War II that the Catholic Church was much involved. And again, I'm not rapping on all Catholics, and I come from a Catholic family, so don't, these are real-time history things. The Catholic Church and formed rat lines, and all the German soldiers, high-end German elites were all ushered out and put into various rat lines around the world, and became the world's diaspora for Nazism. Yeah. And of course, a lot of them really settled in the United States. It wasn't just Operation Paperclip, right. But we've had, even up there where you're at, I used to live in Plumas County, right next to you. I recognize the trees, by the way, and I miss them like crazy. I always used to tell people anytime I wanted to really relax, I'd go out my backyard and pull up a chair and just stare at the bark on the tree. And I was good.
That's good.
But even reports of sightings of Nazis in Plumas County, Sierra County, all any place that looked at Tahoe, there was very much evidence in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even the 80s. And even down here, up around here, we've gotten a number of reports in Marysville, up to Colusa, up to Reading, of various Nazi officials that escaped the war. Well, Jerry Brown, he lives in Colusa County, and the Browns were known to be as Nazi affiliates. And Edmund G. Brown was actually the guy who helped put together the package for Indonesia in the overthrow of Sukarno. And if you read the book by Peter Levenda, you find out that Adolf Hitler was actually actively involved in that overthrow. And so you have Edmund G. Brown comes in as a sharp attorney in the 50s and 60s and arranges the financials for Indonesia. And his deal was that he was getting $1 per barrel of per every barrel pumped of light sweet crude out of Indonesia. And Jerry Brown was his dad.
Wow.
So yeah,
Of course, Obama comes out of that area too. So that's
who does?
Obama.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, Obama comes out of Indonesia, absolutely, and Jerome Corsi's the one. I worked with Jerome Corsi with a bunch of people back 12. That's now, it's 20 years ago. Actually, Jerome caught me on this. I said, "Hey, didn't we get together 50?" No, Paul, it was 20 years. So we go back a long ways from Social Security number to the in the channel there, Loretta Fuddy. And the whole idea that Obama was not an American. He wasn't born here. He was born in Indonesia, and he was a Subud. And the Subuds are a special Muslim cult, and he's very much a Subud as his father. If you take a look at Muhammad Subud, anybody look it up. You tell me that's not the template for Barack Obama. Guy looks identical. Phenotypes are in play there, but this whole thing is Nazi aided. I mean, we were one of the first programs with Chris Street, who started calling out, asking the questions. Well, why in 2006 did they start flying 200 military-age men every day from Tehran to Caracas, Venezuela? They did this continually until recently when Trump raided Venezuela. So why were they doing that? I mean, think about it. Now, you've got the Hitler influence in Iran, and you also have the Hitler influence in Egypt. Hitler was the co-companion to Muhammad what's his name? I can't remember his last name right now, but he helped to form the Muslim Brotherhood. And this is in 1928 in Muhammad al-Banna. And the two of them, and now it's kind of interesting because I go back and check history every once in a while on the internet just to see what's going on. When you get to the Nazi thing, boy, they start hiding stuff. So you won't find a lot of articles now that talk about Obama forming the Muslim Brotherhood, but the telltale history of Obama is that the telltale history is the very first place that he spoke internationally was in Cairo. And what he demanded was that Mubarak free all the Muslim Brotherhood in order for him to speak, that he in Cairo, which was in January of 2009, that he would free all the Muslim Brotherhoods of Egypt, because Mubarak wasn't stupid. He had these guys locked up. They're Nazis is what they are. Wow. And so he had them locked up, and so Mubarak said, "I'm not going to do that." And he says, "Well, you get no more military aid from the United States, so you have them there in my speech." And so Mubarak did. He freed them, and all the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood sat right in the front row of the theater at Cairo University to hear Obama speak.
Wow!
And that was in 2009, and before that, you had the Muslim Brotherhood had already made itself present in the United States and declaring it was going to overthrow the United States.
Jeez.
But so the Nazis are the Nazis. We get it from the Shia Nazis or the Sunni Nazis, and that's the divisions of course, the Islam, as you know, the Muslims. You have Sunni Muslims in Saudi Arabia and Iraq, and then you have Shia Muslims in Iran.
Right.
Two different breeds of cat, but they're cats nonetheless.
And they fight all the time.
So you can see what they're doing with, and you maybe now people can understand Trump's strategy in Venezuela, why he went there first the way he did, and it wasn't just because you had the drugs and you had the oil and you had the dictatorship, and oh, by the way, you have the crooked elections,
Right.
but it's a Nazi breeding camp, and of course, what was the main ground force we have today that's inside? We have Trende de Agua, and there's the other big one too that's got worth trillions of dollars. I can't remember the name of that one right now, but these are not good people in our country, and there's a plan for them. You can bet. You're a military guy, you know how these things work.
Right.
There's a plan for them to do some sort of emergence, but Trump is doing the right thing. I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
But this is a battle of epic proportions that I don't think people comprehend yet. And I was really happy that Donald Trump came out and made the speech the other night. It was kind of interesting. You and I and everybody who's in this genre, we all understand what happened with the elections for them. It was crooked, and we just accept it as the norm. But,
Right.
Most of America doesn't get it yet. And it's kind of funny because everybody's looking around like, what did he say? They still don't get it. But what Donald
They called
Trump,
it out in December of 2020.
Yeah.
And said this many votes on this in Michigan, this many votes, I was winning. And then middle of the night, he basically did a big speech, and no one seems to even know that. So he's been ahead of this for a long time.
Well, I have a document that I'm going to post up, and it's a document, and I won't read it right now, but it's a document that I wrote as one of our grievances, because we declared independence in 2018, January 2018. And then we saw the elections, and we saw the rigging that was gone. And we'd already been on top of this as one of the main reasons why we wanted to separate from California, is because, the elections are corrupted. And we knew one way to do this was to break up the union, not break it up, but break up the system. So if we became a state, we would not use any of the machines. We'd be manual. And that can't be tolerated in this, as you know, that it all has to be linked together in one system, else it really kind of falls apart, and you can't use the algorithms properly. And so we would break that up and put a stop to this, because we would determine our own set of circumstances for elections. And that was one of the main reasons why we started, because we saw the election system at the time. But then 2020 comes around, and we were very fortunate to have the numbers guy, and he understood the algorithm. We heard that there was an algorithm being used, but Dr. Shiva reported it. He didn't give it an algorithm, and our numbers guy broke the algorithm within hours. And we had all the data, all the facts and figures at the end of November 4th.
It was like every county, you could see the same process in every single county across the United States. 3,000.
That's right.
Counties.
And our numbers guy had it completely taken down. He had everything in. We sent within a day, we sent everything to Donald Trump. So he knew what the numbers were, at least from us. I'm sure, he's a gambling man. I mean, he sets up casinos. He knows about algorithms and gaming machines and things like that, which is the core of those machines. So I wrote a grievance on December 1st, 2020. And it's very telling about the elections and everything. It spells the whole thing out just from the information we had at hand. But, since then, we've got mountains of information that's more conclusive. But one of the things we pointed out in that writing, before anybody even thought about it, was that there were about 3.1 million missing ballots from California's election system that we tabulated, that the numbers guy figured out. He was the first guy to do it. And he goes, where are these things going? Well, it turns out that all the 5 battleground states used all those votes that were peeled off of California. And when you take those 5 numbers and add them together, it equals the amount that was missing from California.
Wow.
And our numbers guy figured that out within days, that's where they went. And of course, that's what he was saying on the 20th.
That's how they legitimized the stolen votes in all these different states. Wow. Incredible. Inserted all those votes.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before. It's incredible. Wow.
So this is stuff we've all, my point is Donald Trump gets up and he really does what the president of the United States is supposed to do. He now tells us, he puts the American public on notice. We have been warred against in a big way. People have declared war on us and we have not declared war on them. This is serious stuff. Serious treason has been committed. High crimes and treason have been committed here. And I think you know that just by briefly reading over some of the stuff that the CIA has done and the briefings and things like that. It was all treasonous. But then you have your own treason here at home and here in our own states, like Gavin Newsom, Jerry Brown, all these guys. Jerry Brown had a big hand in the 2014 Color Revolution, and he provided the California National Guard in Kiev as a sniper unit, and the snipers were deployed and they trained Ukrainians and Russians Ukrainians in Kiev. And of course, that's the Antifa style. You get one going against the other and play the middle. It's Hegelian. And that was part of the John Brennan strategy for the overthrow of the Russian that was there. And so now you've got this whole thing going on with the Ukrainian war, which is really what that started. Now, who is at the root of the Ukrainian war? The Azov Nazis.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
There we go. Yep.
They were at the root of that evil. So this is the stuff that we're dealing with. We're dealing with Nazis again, and Putin doesn't like it. And I'm not I like Putin in the sense that he's not any Ukrainian. He's not an Azov Nazi, but he's got his own set of issues and his own set of problems. But I don't think he wants to have another war with Nazis. You got to remember that in 1943, Adolf Hitler decided to invade Moscow, and at a little place called Kursk, the Russians successfully stopped the Tiger tanks that were running over everybody, and they lost about 3 million men in 3 days.
Wow.
So that's a hurt on the Russians, and they don't forget. I've talked to Russians from that area, and they said, "No, we lost family. We don't forget." And so this whole thing about Napoleon, Hitler, and Napoleon again trying to conquer Russia is still a big thing fresh in their minds. So that's what they're trying to do, is set up the Azov. The Azov Nazis never disbanded after World War II.
No. And the Nazi concentration camps were in Poland. So
Poland.
They're all in Poland too. Not all in Poland, but in that area right bordering Ukraine.
Right.
That's where they're getting most of the NATO supplies through Poland.
Yeah, there's too many connected dots to Nazis again.
Yeah.
And communists. But
wow.
The communists are not as influential in Russia as they were before. But they've thrown off the communists. And a lot of people still think the Russians are communists, and the Russians aren't communist.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to Iran, all the way back in 1953, when Britain and the United States overthrew the prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. And that's when Iranian people started to dislike and see as the United States and Britain, of course, as, against them. And it's understandable. So they probably used that, I say, for probably a great extent, how they, took down the Shah and then, brought in the real Nazis, the ones that are in there right now since for 47 years now.
Well, the idea of Antifa was Antifa. It was started, I think, as a fascist group, whether Mussolini and Hitler quickly adopted them. Yep. And it's the same flag as Mussolini and Hitler used. They're using it here in the United States. I mean, you might as well just throw up the swastika. And but their job under Hitler was one day they're going to be loyalists to Germany, and then the next, and then they, as loyalists to Germany, they're going to go off into a Nazi area that's very much supported by and create trouble in that town. The next day they'll go off and say, well, we're Nazis, we're going to go off to a communist area. So they go communist, Nazi, stirring up the trouble between the two populations. And that's what Antifa does today. It's the same thing. But, people don't understand that history. And of course, there's a lot of people trying to make you forget it. Oh, yeah. But, we can't let that happen. And that it's programs like ours that tell that truth now. You don't get this kind of stuff, this kind of truth on mainstream media at all, not even remotely. Everybody has too much to lose, or as you're finding out with ABC and NBC, they've got a lot to hide, and that's why they didn't broadcast the president.
Yeah,
ABC in particular.
They're executives, and probably down the line, really, some of those reporters are totally, embedded and ingrained, and know what's going on. There's probably a lot of them that are just doing their job, but eventually you figure it out, and you either walk away or you're part of the problem then. Right.
And I think that they're just walking away in a lot of places. CNN, as an example, CNN was really very, very strong originally under Turner.
Yeah.
And then he kind of turned in '92 with the United Nations Agenda 21 business, which is again another Nazi design.
How much do you think Jane Fonda influenced him?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But she influenced a lot of Americans to be pissed off at her. It didn't matter. If you were, I lost friends in Vietnam, and my father-in-law was a 3-time Marine in Vietnam. And one time he was also at the Chosin Reservoir. So he was a hardcore Marine. And there's two people he really didn't like. One was Jane Fonda, because of, in his area, he was in northern South Vietnam. He knew all about Hanoi Jane. Yeah. And he also knew about somebody else he considered a traitor, and that was John McCain.
Exactly.
My father-in-law had no use for that guy. We were at home. I was at his house. My wife and I. That was before we were married, but and he had just come home from Vietnam, and it's kind of an interesting story. He pulled up in the C-130 at El Toro Marine Base, and we're out there waiting for him. And so I'd never met him before, and he signaled me over because I was going to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, And so he pulled me over, and my dad was a Marine, so I kind of wanted to follow in that history. And he says, Paul, it's nice to meet you, but he says, don't say anything, just listen to me. He says, if you want to marry my daughter and you're here to ask for her hand in marriage, and you want to go in the Marine Corps, I'm going to say no.
Wow.
Now, this is a guy, this guy gave his life and soul to the Marines, of course. And I just sat there and looked at him. He says, what's your answer? And I said, well, I want to marry your daughter. And the war was winding down anyway. But the point is that he had seen enough. He had seen enough, and didn't want to come home and say, there goes my son-in-law on that next plane.
Yeah. Wow.
He just didn't want to do that. But but the sacrifices that were made by those guys is a very strong influence in our world today, as it should be. It's a place of honor, because now historically looking at it, there was a reason for everything. And I think that there was a reason for the Vietnam situation, that we had to stop what was happening, and we did. We put a big kink in the communists in their takeover, and it wasn't too much longer then, after Vietnam, 73 to 80 and 89, the communism collapsed around the world.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I went through prison of war camp training as a SEAL, and they captured us eventually and stuck us in boxes and tortured us, banged us against walls and all kind of stuff, and psychologically messed with us by playing Jane Fonda on the Kansas loudspeaker over and over and over again. I after that point, I was like, yeah, Jane Fonda's. If I had any doubts at that point, they were gone after that. So yeah, she was bad news. That's why I wonder, what kind of influence she might have had on Ted Turner. Yeah, because he was. CNN when it first came out was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was, and I used them when Janet Evans came home from the Olympics, and that's another story of mine. But and I put them in 1988 after the Olympics. She was done with the Olympics, but she came home from Seoul, Korea, and I put the cameraman right in the end of the classroom where she came walking in, and within 15 minutes, the whole world was changing around us. It was amazing. Wow. And the collapse of communism a year later actually happened. So that's a whole other part of the story about why I was standing on the bunker, the Fuhrer bunker. But that experience, when I found out the linkage between the Nazis, South America, and the verifiable evidence that to me, it was very easily verified. When I talked to Christoph Neubauer on the bunker, it was about 3.5 hours of standing there on the bunker. And it was in the middle of no man's land. There's still landmines all around. And by the way, I got to tell you that, and you've walked in many battlefields and stuff, but to be out in that no man's land, which looked like a bunch of dirt and stuff, it wasn't dirt. It was human rubble.
Wow.
About 20 feet deep of human rubble, buildings, bricks, lampshade covers, electrical appliances. They were drilling some holes down to put a fence up to keep people from walking around because there's still landmines out there. And they would drill these holes, and you look in the holes, and they go down about 4 feet, and it's all it is just human, built parts of buildings and steel. I mean, it's amazing to see that whole area is that way. But that shows you how complete that war was. And as I traveled around Eastern Europe, Eastern Germany, I traveled much around the Eastern. I did not find really any communities or towns or villages that were completely rebuilt. Most of them were just rebuilt from the rubble that was around them.
Good God.
That's the way the people lived.
Yeah. Yeah, communism didn't work. And tell that to the Democrat Party. It's like they don't seem to get it. But it's part of the agenda that we know, that we're speaking of and trying to inform everybody of. But yes, never in history has it worked. And it's always, been brutal against people eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't want it to be brutal here, but it's going to get brutal if we don't get our hands on it. And I think that Donald Trump has done the right thing. He's officially done his administrative job, which is to inform the American people officially, as president, as the executive, that we have been attacked.
Yeah.
There is a war going on. And if we don't, he's done it officially. Now he's going to do whatever he needs to do after that. So if he wants to fulfill his responsibilities with the Insurrection Act and so on, being a former superintendent administrator, I get what he did. You tell the public what's going on. You let them know. You put them on notice. Yeah. And look for yourself. He has dumped so much information out. Now, you and I have seen much of that, and we've seen the interviews and stuff. So to us, it's just old hat stuff. But now we have a job. We have a job to convey that information now, and where people are really going to listen to us. I've been getting a lot of requests for interviews and things like that now, and you can tell by my voice, I've been doing a lot of talking. a lot of talking, but
as everybody can see, you're an incredible wealth of information. It's stunning, your knowledge and how you've been involved in this for so long. Breaking down wherever you could this system. Now, on your website, you have Make America Great Again Political Action Coalition. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we've got a couple of things going on with a couple of groups, and what we're trying to do is we're going to actually move the. What we're going to do is we're actually going to move the New California State idea across the United States.
Oh, wow.
And this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, but the California model, the new California model that we have right now, is a model to actually get rid of the corporation constitution that all states pretty much have gotten. And so, in other words, in 1871, the British came in and gave us a corporate constitution for Washington, D.C. And they've always headed up the finances and so on for the United States. And that I'm kind of abbreviating a lot of things, and everybody needs to understand about the corporations. So 1879, California tosses its constitution, and the one that brought it into the Union, the 1850 Constitution, and it's the compact constitution. Now, there's a difference between a compact, and a corporation in terms of how you guide people. And a government is guided by a constitution. And our constitution is very rare indeed, as well as our Declaration of Independence and our Bill of Rights. So this compact constitution that we have is one that's the one that 1850 had, gives us the very first responsibility, and that is to be providing a republican form of government, not a democracy. The word democracy is never used by the founding fathers. They abhorred a democracy. Yeah. Very clearly, they did. Every single one of them did. And they did not want to hear anybody talking about a democracy like we talk about it today. And of course, it shouldn't be a surprise that when 1787 comes around and we get the Constitution approved, which is a governance document, it's not a corporation, it puts us, we the people, in charge. It doesn't put a corporation, a board in charge, or investors in charge. It puts we the people, the citizens. We have God-given rights, and through these God-given rights, we create a godly government, one that lives in the light of the Lord. That's basically the way they looked at it. Every founding father agreed with it. And you can find the writings of these founding fathers. They are absolutely believing, like I do, that this Constitution is a constitution that's structured for a moral society. And so the Constitution only works if it's a good moral society. And of course, we've turned away from that, because in 1871, the idea of corporations, which is the British way of doing business, by the way, always has been. It's also many of your churches, the Catholic Church is pretty much adherent to this. They come up with the corporate constitution for the District of Columbia. Now, some people say that was the agreement by which it binds the entire United States to a corporation. That I disagree with that. It was the modeling of that corporation of 1871, like by California. California comes into the Union in 1850. They are using their compact constitution, the one that the Congress agreed to, which says you're going to do the guarantee to all citizens. Number one, a republican form of government. Number two, freedom from invasion. Number three, freedom from domestic violence. And so they created our founding fathers in California, as did all founding fathers in all states, because all 50 states have a compact agreement. That's the people's agreement with the federal government to be a part of the Union. And that has to be approved by Congress. And once it's approved, the first thing it's going to say that the government, the Constitution of that state, is Republican in form. That's the most important thing of all. Yet everybody doesn't even think about a Republican form of government anymore. And that shows you how far we've gone. So a corporation is not a Republican form. It's a dictatorship. It's a democracy. It always has been. It's got a boss. It's got a line of authority. And then you have the customers. That's it. Every time I go down to my county office down here in Sutter County, there's a sign that's reserved. It's got 3 parking places reserved, and the signs say, "This is the county of Sutter County, and this parking space is reserved for our customers."
Wow.
It doesn't say our taxpayers because Sutter County is a corporation. It's customers. And so, I mean, just the little distinctions like that, but that's a big problem because a corporation is a democracy. It's not a Republican form of government. It's not representative. You don't have people making decisions based upon people all around the nation or the counties or the state coming together and designing legislation, and then it becomes law. You don't have that. You have basically people like right now. I'm the president of the New California State Inc. Now, New California State Inc. is a necessary model in order to build a government, in order to build a constitution that's a we the people constitution. And it's worked well. And I haven't abused it, but it's worked very, very well for our model. And when we get approved, this all goes away as a corporation. It goes away and we become, the government of California, which is a constitutional government. Awesome. But what happened in 1879 was California was converted into a corporation. And since then, California's conversion has included the following: over 900 changes by way of propositions to the Constitution. Now, Michael, let's see. Our Constitution was amended initially with 10 amendments when it first came out. We've only had 17 additional changes to the Constitution as amendments, either to approve or to withdraw, since 1787. But California's had it's over about 990 is what it is.
Wow.
And all of it's been money, commitment for money. And guess what? California is now $4 trillion in debt. How's that democracy working out for California?
Not at all.
And we haven't even talked about the voter fraud. And we haven't even talked about the fraud for Medi-Cal, for everything else, which is another trillion plus. It just keeps on going. They're a disaster. And that's why it was easy for us to, it's a communist state actually, but that's why it was easy for us to follow the West Virginia model and create the states that we have now. And so this model that we've created, we're going to take now, there's about 37 states that have in some way, shape, or form modified their constitution into a corporation. And we're going to put that out there on the line. And we're going to definitely be parading this around, putting this together. And that's in the works. I really can't talk too much about it. I'm kind of avoiding it, but it's exciting.
You don't want to give away the plan because they'll stop you out if they know.
Well, I think that with this announcement by Trump and putting everybody on notice, we're now at a different level of operation.
Totally. So open the door for all of like what you're doing, what I've been trying to push, and other people have been trying to push. You can see everyone's pushing harder now.
That's right. That's right. It's kind of exciting. We're kind of like on the other side of this, like, hey, wait a minute. And, we've been putting out letters to the county clerk recorders and to the county board of supervisors and stuff like that about you don't want to find yourself taking and certifying elections that have been using illegal foreign nationals, because that's called felonies. That's exactly what Mullen said yesterday. We wrote letters warning everybody in California, all 58 counties. We delivered them all in one day. One day. Wow. 52 counties were hand delivered in one day, and the rest of them were electronically delivered. But Mullen said that yesterday. He said that these are felonies, and we're going to hold you election officials responsible. And we warned them about this weeks ago. Yeah.
Now, I post a lot on social media, X being the main one, but I have this little conversation going back and forth about all these people that are probably going to be held accountable and so forth, and they should come out and talk. And one way to jokingly, of course, I would never expect this to happen. I don't think we're going to go to medieval at this point, but who knows? And then, back in medieval times, they would draw and quarter, disembowel and cut off the head, put it on the
Steak.
Steaks in front of the White House, and or you can get firing squad and thrown in an unmarked grave. Which would you like to choose or to talk? So, and that's kind of where we're at. Really, we have so many people that are treasonous on an unbelievable level that cause great devastation. Just the J6 committee alone, and all those people that were locked up, over 1,000, 1,500 that were locked up. I was at one of those trials, and it was a travesty. They would not allow First Amendment rights, and they said it right from the beginning. I was like, what? I'm in the capital of the United States. This is a federal court. There's FBI, DOJ, and this is what they're putting out? Wow.
That's not an American court.
No.
That's a Hitler's show trial.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Those were Hitler's show trials. And I look for the places where they're going to do the Hitler thing. And it's very clearly Hitlerian what happened with the J6ers, very clear. And, you see vestiges of that with some of the people that are being questioned right now that are brought before the House. This whole idea of wokeness and everything has all been generated by these same folks. And it all started, in the 70s. And, you have Derek Bell as an example. He brought about critical race theory, and Obama adopted the idea because Obama attended Harvard, and Derek Bell was one of his, he admired him so deeply. And Derek Bell saw through with Obama. I think he probably had some idea he was going to be president someday. The opportunity to insert critical race theory into the curriculum of schools. He had to federalize the public schools first, which they did in 2010. But this is the opening for Nazism and all the other evils that go along with it. When you talk about Nazism, it's just not about them putting people in gas chambers. It's the whole psychological trips. It's the psyops. It's everything that go along with Nazism. And there's a lot that goes along with it. Many other things are subtle, but they're there. One of the movies I always recommend if they want to understand it more deeply is Swing Kids. I don't know if I've ever seen Swing Kids. It's a very, very good movie to understand some of the nuances of the Hitler situation. We had one political candidate, and I suspect they're watching right now, but I'm going to tell the story. Running for office, and the daughter was, but again, a political person. This was a recent thing. A political person. So the body was cremated, and in classic Hitlerian style, the post office lost the urn.
Good God.
It wasn't enough that in the middle of an election, you lose your daughter, and in the middle of the election, they misplaced the urn.
Yeah,
those are telltale signs.
Exactly. That's how they, tell you. And I would lose, YouTube channels because I was putting out some of this information and the election steal and so forth. So I would get a notice in my Gmail. I'm thinking my Gmail is completely, sacrosanct and I have control of it. But no, I would get a notice from some source that was my YouTube channel was gone. And then I would go and look, and my YouTube channel is still there. And so I would get these I would get that type of stuff. I worked in the CIA, and we saw the Nazis behind the scenes, like you're talking about. There's those of us that were doing the good stuff, tracking, finding terrorists, taking them out and so forth, drone striking them, my old team, Red Squadron coming in and taking out Osama bin Laden or whoever that was playing him. But, there's a lot of, those of us that are doing the right thing. But the way they hide is they have non-disclosure agreements by all of us not to talk about anything. And then everything's compartmentalized. So you see these other groups that are out there and you can't speak out. You can't, and Obama stopped that. He was like, if you want to whistle blow, then we're going to let you. And then all the whistleblowers, they hammered them. They destroyed them.
Yeah, they destroyed them, right.
That showed all the whistleblowers what's going to happen if you whistleblow. So we knew that we couldn't speak out. And a lot of my buddies over the years are like, why didn't you ever speak out? Do you remember when we used to sign NDAs? So they were like, oh yeah. So they'll destroy your life. And they did destroy my life. And, I've been able to work back, thankfully, and have incredible guests like yourself on to, talk about all this craziness and make sense of it so that we can bring it down.
Well, that's the key thing, is that there's been a lot of pain on a lot of people, and I'm not immune from that. But I've learned from it that God has me here for a reason, and like with you, and I tell all the people in New California that we are here. God has us in this room, in this program, for a reason, and that is definitely that we understand much more so than the general public, and we can convey. See, now we're communicators because we have our own TV channels and things like that. One of the greatest things that happened is the internet, with being able to broadcast like this. I've been broadcasting like this since 2006, I think, and then you can't listen. I can't do anything on YouTube. They took everything down, 15 years of videos and everything. Yeah. And then I can't even, I can't even comment on a YouTube video. They won't let me. It's forbidden.
What it was for me, and I don't know what changed when Trump came back in. Because when Trump came back in, I got my X account back. I tried over and over again and got blocked out, knocked out, and I was like, okay, that's into Twitter. And then Elon bought it, and Trump came back, and I was like, well, maybe I can get back in. So I'm back in X. I'm back on YouTube. They still restrict to a certain extent, but mostly I speak out. Like, we're live in X and YouTube right now, and this is like huge what we're talking about. So.
Well, I don't want you to get you blown off of YouTube.
I know, because I was that way too. And I would do a show with people, and they put it up on YouTube, and they get like lose their whole channel. I was like, sorry, I told you. So,
yeah, they didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But these are truths. There's nothing unfactual about what I'm talking about. It's all, you have to really. Now it's going to be more difficult to find the information, but you'll just have to dig deeper to find it. Especially what they're really doing a big cover up on the Hitler thing right now. And but the telltale sign is Obama, because Obama, walks in his footsteps, and that was always what that was about.
No kidding. That totally makes sense now.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's the new Hitler. How about
well,
that?
he was and you keep in mind that as the warm up. The guy comes out of nowhere in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So he kicks out Hillary Clinton as the candidate for 2008, and that was all bizarre. But what was even more bizarre was he was a two-term senator for Illinois to the U.S. Senate, and he was never around. And he spent quite a bit of time in the Ukraine as a senator. Now, of course, what was happening then in the Ukraine used to be a big industrial center. That was the heart and soul of the industrial center for the Soviet Union. They built the rocket motors. They had, they had tank factories. They had the whole 9 yards. Shipping and all that was coming out of Ukraine. And as soon as the Cold War hit, it started to decline, but it was still a huge center. But the Ukraine and the Nazis never left, and of course that's been the biggest bugaboo. But the Ukraine's a classic example, of Russia's a classic example of this warfare that we're all seeing and dealing with. They're dealing with it on their end, but it's never going to go away unless Donald Trump comes back to the words that he's talking about with Iran right now. That's when it's going to go away, and it might be a tough slog, but there's worse to come if we don't stand up to it. And that's why it's so good that we're doing this now. That's the learned thing. We've learned these things. You and I can tolerate these things. Other people can't, but we can lead them through it by what we're doing on our radio, on our programs here.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. We know now that the Nazis came over and started the FBI, CIA, and all these other
Right.
better agencies. So there's that undercurrent. There were those of us that knew it and decided we were going to work around it. So there is the possibility that these organizations can be won back because there are really, and if you're a good person, and like I was talking about, you wanted to speak out, you would be destroyed. I saw people speaking out; they were boom, gone and destroyed. And so I was like, okay, that's the way this is. So we'll just quietly do what we can until hopefully the opportunity arises where we can push back and take down this system. And I think that's what President Trump is offering for us. But we have to be involved.
He has called them out now.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever called them out. And, we've called them out, but, who are we compared to the president? I mean, he's got the bully pulpit and he used it. And I'm glad he did. We wrote 190 grievances and I think 30 declarations and proclamations, and we read them down at the state capitol and all that stuff. And almost every single one is demanding that he declare an insurrection and invoke the Insurrection Act and take over, do the things he needs to do.
Yeah.
That was started in 2018. And, it seems like that's a reality now, closer, only because circumstances are different. In 2018, people are thinking we're a bunch of wingnuts. Right. By 2022, after the election of 2020, they're going, man, you guys may be onto something,
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden it's resonating. We know we're resonating. We know that the hum is there and the excitement is building, and you can see it. But and it's about time. And said, yeah, but we needed Donald Trump to do what he did the other night, and the whole nation needed it because we needed to hear the truth about what really did happen in 2020. And it was already happening before that. We all know that are in the know. But 2020 was their Waterloo, I think, even though they stole the election and we had the problems that we had with Biden and all the other stuff. We were invaded. In the Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, the guarantee clause, it says the three things that a state and the federal government have to do for you and I, as we the people, we are the citizens, is they have to provide a Republican form of government, which is the representative government, and freedom from invasion, that's number 2, and freedom from domestic violence. And like I tell people in California, do we have freedom from that? And the answer is no. And we haven't had for a long time. And this country hasn't had it for a long time. And we saw a classic demonstration in which the entire Constitution was surrendered by Joe Biden, and our borders were open for millions to come across.
Yeah. That's
called an invasion. You can't say it's not. And, one of the other things, too, that proves the invasion is that we talked about this on our radio show this morning, that all the people that came across the border, what was the one thing that they took from them? Their IDs. Their photo IDs. Everybody had to get rid of their IDs. Now, one of the phenomena that we have out here in California with the DMV is that they're issuing licenses with people's that don't have a name on them.
Whoa, really?
And yeah, you look at the driver's license and it says no name given. Now, what that means is if they get pulled over by the highway patrol and they get no name given, that's a state entity that issued that. So if there's no name given, they don't have a database on this person. And you know what they do? They let them go. They don't give them a ticket.
Incredible.
No, they don't. And they can't be charged with anything.
Yeah. Now, I remember when I was in here after I left the CIA, I was scrounging for work, and I was a casino manager, securities casino manager, and we were busting a lot of young people that were trying to use fake IDs, and a lot of them. I mean, the IDs were like incredible. You looked at them, you're like, no way, that's fake. And then we used the blue light on them, and you could see all the inconsistencies. It's like, oh yeah, that's just a fake. You're going to have to see the sheriff, and they would invariably say that they were coming from China. All of them. So China's been at this for quite some time.
Well, China was making our ballots too.
Oh, yeah. Right.
They were flooding I call it flooding the zone. It's a football term. They were flooding the zone with ballots. That's how we got so many extra ballots in so many different areas. But and again, Runback and all these other companies they're all part of the schemata, the system that's out there. And China, but this whole ID thing is it's starting to catch on. I mean, this is something that's a serious problem for drivers. Not only that, but criminals. These guys have a ticket to paradise without any kind of charges being filed against them.
And so we can kind of go back as far as like the steal, like we're talking about, to Hillary Clinton when she basically got her senatorship in New York after JFK Jr. had his plane crash. And that was on purpose because he was going to win that, no doubt about it.
Oh, so yeah.
She wanted that spot. And then she lost to Obama because they decided she probably wasn't even aware that he was going to win because that's the way they work these things. So she thinks that she's going to get it. And then all of a sudden, boom, that's the way it's crazy. These people depend on and believe that they're sacrosanct and they're going to be, treated well. And then, of course, in 2018, when she came in and she lost, she was dumbfounded then too. But that was because, we came in. Now, JFK, said that he was going to, blow up the CIA in 1,000 pieces. And he had that speech, but he didn't have the information that Trump had online this time. So there's a lot of similarities between President Trump and JFK because that one art center in DC, there was John F. Kennedy, and President Trump put his name on there too. And everybody was like, oh my God, how can you do that? But there's a lot of stuff we're seeing. And, JFK Jr. and Donald Trump were good friends. And so there's a lot of interesting things happening. And Hillary Clinton said that Trump stole the election from me by the Russians. The Russians did it. The Russians did it. And we need to look at his tax. And of course, we found out Russians didn't do it. And President Trump's taxes were perfect. And she said, we should use China. She said it way back. We should use China to go after the Republicans because they're so bad using the Russians. So they're telling us what they're doing for a long time.
Yeah, they have been, and the numbers that we pulled, Michael Yon and others giving information on this, and now even some of your federal officials are starting to talk more about the truth about how many came across the border. Yeah. And we were making some rough tallies as we went over the years, over the months, years. I was way over 100 million, and other people were saying, no, it's 100 million. And then they come out with, it was only 10 million. No, wait a minute there. There's another zero there, easily. Really? If you've ever been down at the border, if you're ever down at the border and watched some of that circus down there with all those men in particular, it was always, middle-aged or military-age men that were lining up. You'd realize that, I saw 7,000 to 10,000 people in one day. And I wasn't even looking hard on the border. I was just in a couple locations. Right. And it was, if you're figuring that kind of, just that number in itself is going to put you at 20, 25, 30 million out of San Ysidro, San Diego. And what about Texas, which was wide open, for so long. And so that's, yeah.
Republican, not Rhino, yes.
Yeah, well, we define rhinos and dinos now.
Dinos, huh?
Democrats in name only. Does that make sense?
That does.
So you have Republicans in name only and dinosaurs. No, Democrats. Yeah. So we've got some artwork that we're working on to put that together. It's pretty hilarious. The dinosaurs are well represented in the artwork, but we have a monoparty system in California. Mm-hmm. We don't have any Republicans and we don't have Democrats. The Democrats are communists. They're Nazis. Either actually, the Democrats are the communists and the Nazis are the Republicans. That's really what they are. And when it breaks down, but now they've melded into this uniparty. And there's only a few good Republican conservatives, and there's no Democrats. that have surfaced of any note. Now, I think there are some, but they're too timid to come forward.
Sure.
And make themselves known. And it's really sad. They get elected to an office, and it's in them. They just don't do it. They're scared. And so that's what fear does in a totalitarian mindset, in a government being ruled by by a one-party system. And the only way to stop this is to create a new state. That's the only way you do it.
Wow. And you guys are doing it. It's just happening. So that's amazing. So let's how can people reach you?
Well, the best way to do is go to newcaliforniastate.com, newcaliforniastate.com. There's an 800 number there, also 877-828-2753. That's another way to get a hold of us. You can get we answer the phone right. Well, it's an answering service, but we get back to you within just a few minutes normally. And we have a big thing coming up this next weekend on the 25th. We're going to be down in Pacific Palisades, and we have a hearing, a legislative hearing. And one of the things that sets us apart, remember I said December 1st, 2020, I wrote an article, a grievance about the elections. And December 2nd, 2020, we opened up our very first legislative hearing. We used members of our Assembly and Senate to conduct hearings up in Shasta County. Yeah. And we spent about 6 hours up there. We had about 75 people total, but about 25 who testified. And by the end of the day, we're in hog heaven here with evidence of fraud. I mean, it was just blatant. We had one home center that they probably had 500 ballots that were sent to us, and only 30 people. It was one of those kind of deals. I mean, we had fraud everywhere. And so we decided we're going to go back a second day. So we went back, and our second one was held in Shasta just 4 days later on the 6th. And again, more information. And nothing has changed up there in Shasta. It still is running a fraudulent type of system, no matter what their systems they're trying to put in there. The key factor is the machine, that all the machines need to go. You can't just have one or two counties. All the machines need to go, and the mail-in ballots need to go. And Donald Trump laid that out very clearly. Now, that's just something that we've been saying since then. We filed a lawsuit after those two hearings, and to stop, because we knew the numbers. We knew that the numbers for Donald Trump winning California was 15,800,000, and Biden was only 4,600,000. That was the reality check. But Gavin Newsom and Alex Padilla, who was the Secretary of State at that time, they managed to pull a fast one, and we saw what they were going to do. So we filed a lawsuit in December 14th, and the courts wouldn't hear it. If we had our day in court, it would have gone to the Supreme Court immediately, and we would have stopped the J6 situation.
Wow!
They wouldn't have counted. They wouldn't have counted the fact of the matter is that Alex Padilla never signed the certificate of certification for the 2020 election. Listen to that. Alex Padilla was the Secretary of State. He never signed it. And we have the evidence. We got it during discovery. We got the evidence to put right in our lap. And all we needed to do is just bring it to court, but the courts wouldn't hear it. We filed motion after motion to shorten time and everything, but they just wouldn't do it. And finally, we got a hearing date for April 7th. Wow. There you go. Plenty of time to stop the 2020 elections. The counting. But there were some big mistakes made. It was deliberate though. And I think the J6, if you study Nazi Germany, there was another situation called the Reichstag was put on fire. Yeah. And people, if they want to see the mini operation that took place of the Reichstag fire, which transmitted into the Capitol J6 event, that's it, because the parallels are uncanny.
Really?
They're following the model. That's right. And wow. I've been to the Reichstag just before they started to really reconstruct it in 92. And if you learn the history of the Reichstag, you know that that's exactly what they were doing, complete with Ukrainian military operation. I'm sure you've talked to enough of the J6ers. You've been to the trial. there were actual Ukrainians in uniform.
Yep.
In the capital. They were invading. We were at war with the Ukraine.
I was there and I saw all kinds of anomalies. I don't know if they were EMPing or whatever, but no one had cell service. I'm sure that was on purpose so we couldn't report. But I saw, I took videos. Of course, I put those on YouTube and they took their YouTube channel down. But I had lots of information that was anomalous that should have been red flagged all over the place. And now we know that we're, over 100 FBI agents that were all in the crowd.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. That was definitely a Nazi organization that was happening there.
But study the Reichstag fire and how it got Hitler to come to power. And I think that I really think that we as a nation are better people than what the enemy thinks of us.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that our Constitution really is effective in all different ways, much more so than people realize. We've held this country together in the face of this internal enemy, but we are going to be tested again in many ways. I have no doubt. In the last part of this whole trip, they're going to do something stupid. And if it's warfare causing large mass casualties or something like that. But I don't think these people want to go away silently. And I think that every American has to have his head on a shoulder, head on a swivel, your shoulders on a swivel, your head on a swivel. Yeah, I used to coach football too, and I used to say that too. But anyway, it's time to do that. It really is time to do that, and take stock in what you're doing as an American. But the one thing you want to do is go back to your biblical beliefs, and you want to go back to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, read it, learn about it. We're going to be offering some programs here in the next 6 months to the whole nation, we think, and cross our fingers. In other states, we're also going to be migrating to other states with our program. Good. And get involved, because once you start to figure it out, it's a phenomenal thing. Once you start to figure out the power within that Constitution given us by God, the God-given powers, it's a whole different life-changing experience, and you view government completely different, and you view your enemies completely different. You know who they are, and they don't like it. One of the biggest problems that they have in Great Britain and around the world is the spread of the Declaration of Independence, because the document's unique. It's never been done in mankind's history or the Constitution. And when we declared independence, it took them a couple months just to figure out what the definition of independence was, because the word was a new word. It came out in 1661, and it wasn't much in the vernacular. But the founding fathers weren't stupid. They were very bright men. They figured it out. And we all know today what it means, primarily because we have a Declaration of Independence. That's what I believe. So the word of mouth back to England, it took them 3 months to get the paperwork there to read it, and another 3 months to figure out what that word meant. And the king just blew it when he figured out what it was. So wait a minute, we can't have this. By then, though, after our revolution and so on, you started to pick up other colonized areas in Central and South America. And the spread of the Declaration of Independence was on. It spread, and the Constitution spread to every single country that we call a country today in Central and South America. And they all formed republics. Which is what they're all supposed to be. They're not now, and a lot of them had infiltrators, and the churches come back strong and stuff like that, like in Mexico. And they don't adhere to their constitutions. Bukele is, he works. There's a guy who's recovered the Constitution and a Republican form of government. It can happen. And now we are going to do the same here in California, in New California, and then the rest of the nation. So it's going to be a big deal.
Benjamin Franklin, that famous quote, "A republic, if you can keep it, madam."
That's right.
What kind of form of government do we have now? So that's where we're at. I don't think that we've done a good job of keeping it. Democracy is, everybody thinks democracy is, and the Greeks are like, that's the worst form of government. So, and the best is a republic, and that's why the founding fathers chose a republic.
That's right. And it's up to us to maintain it.
Yeah.
That's our job. That's our God-given right to maintain it. And God has us in charge, by the way. When I speak to these crowds and I tell people, God has you in charge now. He's given you the strength, and you're in charge. You have God-given rights. You're in charge, and they look at you like, what? And then you can you keep on talking. And they're thinking about it. What an option! Wow, God's on my side. Well, yeah, He is. He is for us Americans. He really is. It's just you have to realize what side of God you want to be on.
Oh yeah, which side? Evil or good? So
there's only one side for God, and the other side is not for God. It's evil. So, totally. But that's our foundational Christian beliefs, and we are a Christian country. And I'm not knocking other religions. Don't get me wrong. Our nation always brings in all religions, except we're not going to treat Islam very well because I don't believe that's a religion.
Yeah,
I think we're having problems there. So. That'll have to change. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
My money is on the Constitution.
Mine too. Yeah. It's going to happen. Hopefully it won't be too much of a, fight to get it back there. But I think it's going to be like you're warning. I've been warning, you need to have your head on a swivel, and because things are going to get pretty crazy, because they're not going to give it up. The Nazis have never given anything up. So there'll be fight to the end.
Yeah, the good news is that we're outing the Nazis.
Yes.
And that's another factor. We have to out the Nazis for what they are.
Yeah.
And that's going to really throw them off. But you know what? We are Americans, and that's our job for the world. We have a heritage with the world, and God has us here for a reason, like I said. And evil is what we stop.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Paul. It's been an honor to have you on. Wow, you're just, like I said in the beginning, everybody's going to be in for a treat because you're just a wealth of information and insight. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And, come to one of our functions. We got to invite you to come down to one of our many functions. But we're going to be down in Los Angeles at Pacific Palisades with this hearing. And, boy, it's going to be, I think, a Donnybrook of information coming out because of what's going on with Gavin Newsom and what's going on with Bass and that whole crew. But, they're Nazis. They are Nazis. You can't get around it.
That's fantastic. I love that. So, and what date is that?
It's going to be the 25th, and there's a flyer on the website, newcaliforniastate.com, and you have to reserve a position. It's open to everybody, and we don't discriminate, but we are respecting the privacy of the location because they've had so much, that it's in an area that's burned. And so they've had a lot of problems, and we want to respect that. We'll get the email out about the location the day before, so you'll have plenty of opportunity to get there and have directions and so on. But we didn't want people nosing around places now, days before. That would be a most inconvenient. So we just put it that way. So it's going to work out well.
Very good. And I put that in the chat, and it'll be in the description box, guys. But this my information gets shared without my consent quite a bit. So that's why I have my guests say, give the information of where they can contact you and so forth. So yeah, again, Paul, absolutely incredible. Like I said, we'll put everything in the description box, and the links are in the chat right now, so you guys got it. So get involved. We can't get our Constitution back and get our republic back unless we, the people, because it's made for we, the people, and we, the people, have had it stolen from us. So we have to get it back. And it's going to be a little bit of everything's on our side. The president, the military, for the most part, and a lot of people within all these government institutions, agencies are wondering, when can we, push back on this? And now here we go. It's go time.
Yep. Michael, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Restored Republic via GCR. Duty note: of the 460 federal judges recently arrested by Trump's global military alliance, 47 were charged with coordinating intelligence with China, Iran or Russia, 89 were charged with protecting drug cartel networks, Blocking prosecutions, 156 were charged with blocking election fraud investigations and 168 were charged with coordinating with deep state operatives and blocking military investigations. Patriots, we have serious problems that Trump and the global military alliance were in the midst of solving. Twos. July 14, 2026. Prepare for Phase 1 blackout. Rolling blackouts all across the world happening now. Travel restrictions. Emergency lockdowns. Virtual ID to enter businesses. Tonight will be biblical. Soon every cell phone on the planet will be hit with 7 trumpet sounds transmitted from the Starlink satellites, bypassing the elite-controlled media channels. The alliance has spent years preparing for this announcement, quietly building a network of satellites and secure communication lines. Over it, President Trump will give 7 messages to the world about a new era of freedom about to begin. Early twos. Morning July 14, 2026. The Pentagon Insider on Telegram published that the final hours of your old life are ticking away. When tomorrow comes, the game is over. The suffering ends. The deception crumbles. You will remember this moment forever. The old system is collapsing, nothing can stop it now. Your life, your reality, everything you thought was permanent, was just an illusion. The chains are breaking. The lies are dissolving. The new world is emerging before your eyes. Biblical, historical, divine. WWG Wonga. A. What we thought we knew, but didn't really know and now are supposed to know but don't have a clue. With clones, doubles, made-up movies Hollywood style and Trump's military alliance throwing more popcorn at us, it gets so confusing. Twos. July 14, 2026. Fox News. Hillary Clinton whipped up the plan, Obama greenlit the operation, the mainstream media gaslit America, and Brennan's CIA did the dirty work, along with the NSA and FBI. An American coup d'etat was executed against President Donald Trump. The 2020 election was rigged and has been ruled invalid. Trump was believed to have won by an over 80% majority as verified by a military count of election votes on watermarked ballots during the November election. All federal and state officials' positions were null and void as well as any legislation they passed. Many counts of election fraud in various states have been verified since. Dominion machines used in many states were rigged and run by a CIA office in Germany. The Democratic Party was discovered to have worked with the Chinese Communist Party and 65 foreign countries including Venezuela to take control over U.S. voting infrastructure in at least 28 states. Attacking 7 key states and over 600 county polling locations to swing the 2020 election to Biden. The CCP leveraged financial, non-governmental and foreign allies to acquire influence. Electronic voting machines were compromised and millions of invalid ballots were used in the election. B. Possible timing. Twos. July 14, 2026. Prepare for Phase 1 blackout. Nationwide cyber blackout triggered by the cabal. Media, radio networks and phone communications could be shut down simultaneously. Rolling blackouts all across the world happening now. Travel restrictions. Emergency lockdowns. Virtual ID to enter businesses. Tonight will be biblical. Wednesday, July 15, 2026. Martial law declared. Black Hawk helicopters conduct Capitol storm drills in Washington, D.C., signaling full readiness for martial law enforcement. At the same time, global activation sequence begins. BRICS Alliance goes live alongside Nizar Jazar implementation and full rollout of the Quantum Financial System, QFS. Thursday, July 16, 2026. President Trump to address the nation and expose the fraudulent 2020 election, which invalidated the Biden administration, all of Congress and any legislation that they passed. The EBS timeline. Phase 1, July 2026, military secures networks. Trump takes control. Phase 2, August 2026, test broadcasts begin. Public prepared. Phase 3, September 2026, the Great Broadcast. Truth emerges. Crimes exposed. Phase 4, October 2026, new era begins. Humanity liberated. See Global Currency Reset, Thursday, June 25, 2026. Bruce, the big call. The military has shut down communication with Bruce's sources. The Global Military Alliance mass arrests in 21 cities should be wrapped up by noon Wednesday, July 15, 2026. Twos. July 14, 2026. Redemption centers active right now in the U.S., Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, New York City, Philadelphia, Seattle, and were about to go active in Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. Monday, July 13, 2026 marks, the Indian nations have received 80% of their funds. What lies ahead? Web 3.0 ISO 200. What's about to unfold is not chaos. It's not collapse. It's a carefully coordinated global reset under military command, a transition decades in the making. Temporary blackouts, communication cuts, and power disruptions are part of a controlled operation, not a breakdown. Every move has been accounted for. Every second calculated. The quantum financial system, QFS, is already live. Once the blackout begins, it will override all corrupt financial systems, securing your identity, assets, and data through biometric encryption. Your bank accounts will be safe. Your information protected. Fraud-proof. Tamper-proof. Immutable. During the 10 days of darkness, all mainstream media and social platforms will go dark. There will be only one secure broadcast channel, operated by the U.S. Space Force and allied military units, delivering uncensored truth directly to the world. What you'll see will shake humanity: confessions from those you were told to trust, tribunal footage exposing global crimes, proof of suppressed technology, stolen history, and systemic control. You will learn the truth about the deep state. About how entire nations were enslaved in plain sight. And why this moment is the storm we've been warned about. A new era of communication is also coming. The Quantum Communication System, QCS, will replace the surveillance-based Internet. Every individual will receive a private, untraceable ID connected to the quantum grid. No more spying, censorship, or data manipulation. Military and National Guard units will be deployed globally. You may see curfews or road closures. This is not martial law, it is strategic containment to ensure peace and protect the public. Everything is temporary. Everything has purpose. Remain calm. Stay grounded. Help your neighbors. This is not the end, this is the beginning of true liberation. The illusion is collapsing. The old world is dying. And what rises next will be built on truth, justice, and sovereignty. Trust the mission. Trust the timing. The reset isn't coming, it's already begun. F2s. July 14, 2026, Pentagon Military Intelligence confirms. The emergency broadcast system activation is imminent. Trump administration has full control. The deep state cannot stop what's coming. Operation EBS Activation 0701. The moment has arrived. Military intelligence intercepts confirm the timeline is accelerating. The emergency broadcast system will activate within weeks. When it happens, every screen stops. Every device. Every frequency. Every nation. Only truth. The EBS timeline, Phase 1, July 2026, military secures networks. Trump takes control. Phase 2, August 2026, test broadcasts begin. Public prepared. Phase 3, September 2026, the Great Broadcast. Truth emerges. Crimes exposed. Phase 4, October 2026, new era begins. Humanity liberated. Pentagon intelligence leaks, the EBS activation is locked in. Trump has the codes. Military controls the networks. When it happens, mainstream media is permanently silenced. Truth flows for 72 hours straight. Military insiders confirm we've secured every satellite. Every broadcast tower. Every communication system. The deep state tried to stop us. They failed. Activation is unstoppable. The world is about to wake up. The conspiracy: for decades, deep state controlled all information. They used mainstream media as weapon. They silenced truth. They imprisoned patriots. They murdered whistleblowers. Now military has control. EBS broadcasts truth for 72 hours. Every crime. Every conspiracy. Every lie. What happens when EBS activates? Your phone receives emergency alerts. Every TV broadcasts the same message. Every radio carries the signal. Internet goes dark temporarily. Then truth emerges. Arrests begin. Trials broadcast. Justice served. Deep state is panicking. They know EBS activation is coming. They're creating distractions. Fake news. False flags. Manufactured crises. Do not be fooled. Military is in control. Trump is in command. When will it activate? Soon. Very soon. Signs are everywhere. Military movements. Communication blackouts. Unusual government activity. Countdown is real. Timeline is locked. Prepare yourself, stock supplies. Inform family. Prepare for 72 hours of continuous truth broadcasts. World will never be the same. Humanity is about to be liberated. Mainstream media will deny this. They will call it conspiracy. They will try to stop broadcast. They will fail. Military has control. Trump has codes. EBS activation is unstoppable. G. Announcement and implementation of NISR/JSR laws. On 10th of October 200, President Bill Clinton had no interest in signing NISR into law even though the Supreme Court had ruled NISR valid. So, under orders from U.S. military generals, the elite Naval SEALs and Delta Force stormed the White House and under gunpoint, forced Clinton to sign NISR into law. During this time, Secret Service and White House security personnel were ordered to stand down, disarmed and allowed to witness this event under a gag order. NISR law implements the following changes in the U.S. 1. Zeroes out all credit card, mortgage, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. This is the Federal Reserve's worst nightmare, a jubilee or a forgiveness of debt. 2. Abolishes the income tax. 3. Abolishes the IRS. IRS employees have been transferred into the U.S. Treasury National Sales Tax Area. 4. Creates a 14% flat rate non-essential new items only sales tax revenue for the government. In other words, food and medicine will not be taxed, nor will used items such as old homes. 5. Increases benefits to senior citizens. 6. Returns constitutional law to all courts and legal matters. 7. Reinstates the original title of nobility amendment. Hundreds of thousands of Americans under the control of foreign powers will lose their citizenship, be deported to other countries and barred from re-entry for the remainder of their life. Millions of people will discover that their college degrees are now worthless paper. 8. Establishes new presidential and congressional elections within 120 days after NISR's announcement. The interim government will cancel all national emergencies and return us back to constitutional law. 9. Monitors elections and prevents illegal election activities of special interest groups. 10. Creates a new U.S. Treasury, rainbow currency, backed by gold, silver, and platinum precious metals, ending the bankruptcy of the United States initiated by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. 11. Forbids the sale of American birth certificate records as chattel property bonds by the U.S. Department of Transportation. 12. Initiates new U.S. Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law. 13. Eliminates the Federal Reserve System. During the transition period, the Federal Reserve will be allowed to operate side by side of the U.S. Treasury for 1 year in order to remove all Federal Reserve notes from the money supply. 14. Restores financial privacy. 15. Retrains all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. 16. Ceases all aggressive, U.S. government military actions worldwide. 17. Establishes peace throughout the world. 18. Releases enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes. 19. Enables the release of over 6,000 patents of suppressed technologies that are being withheld from the public under the guise of national security, including free energy devices. Your birth certificate is where it all begins. This is where much of the corruption begins. The moment you sign your BC, it is maritime law. You are actually signing a form at sea. You become a commodity of the system, and honestly, you Google it, you research it, and you probably have to be fair like I said, but it's true. You become in a sense, they seize all the assets and go into what they call a trust fund, and then you have 6 years to declare yourself alive. Declare yourself still here and then you can regain your sovereignty. But we didn't know that. It was a system they had set up so that you and I and everyone else were traded like cattle on the stock market. So each of us has a trust fund. And depending on how old you are, it depends on how much money is there. So if you're over 50 or something, you've got millions in there because that's how long we've been traded for. And this is another thing that is also crazy. That's why the mortgage system is absolutely ruined. So when you go for a mortgage, you basically sign the papers and they always tell you, come back in 3 days and we'll have the money. They then take that money out of their trust fund to pay for the house. So, that comes out of your trust fund in your name, which has been growing since you were born. They then charge you interest on your money, but they don't care about the monetary side. They want the house. So if you miss a payment, they'll miss out immediately, because they can repossess your house. For them, the house is a commodity, an asset. Wait to share what the banks do, but this trust fund is where much of your money will come from and be returned to you. This is their money that they have earned from you. Then you also have the tax side. Taxes have never been taken from us, it is illegal. It is a corrupt system. So, all the taxes that we pay, it is not that they are going to return them to us, like the exact amount of taxes that we paid. What I have heard on the channels is the fact that it will be bond-based, so at a certain age you will get so much money back, at a certain age this. I think the 62 plus category was like 110K or something like that. But obviously they'll know more about that when it comes, but that's where more money comes from. This is money that was ours, that should be ours, that we should have been living with to create a better life. Instead, they have put us in this corrupt system where they have been fighting and they are taking all of our money and keeping it for themselves. For themselves. Many people ask where this abundance comes from. Remember that the 1% controlled 99% of the wealth that now comes back to us to live a completely different life. They will give us what is owed to us because we should never have fought like this. J. What we think we know as of Wednesday, July 16, 2026. Monday, July 13, 2026. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has rejected the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court, ICC, over American citizens. This meant that America was rejecting international law and thus any form of global governance. Monday, July 13, 2026. Corrupt Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts exposed. John Roberts' wife Jane made $10,323,842.70 in commissions from big law firms arguing cases before his Supreme Court. Roberts listed it as salary to hide it. He never recused from 500-plus cases when he had a huge financial and family conflict of interest. A formal disbarment complaint was filed April 2026. This guy saved Obamacare and sold out conservatives for years. Why don't House Republicans impeach John Roberts immediately? Hidden files on Telegram, twos. July 14, 2026. Breaking special report, behind the Air Force One leak, what the British fear the most, why Trump's return to the American system risks it all. July 14, 2026. Breaking economic news, Trump's new American monetary system sparks massive debate over gold, XRP, stablecoins and the future of the US dollar. July 14, 2026. Well, no one expected this. July 14, 2026. Historical bombshell, the tax that wasn't supposed to spread, but did. How a temporary lie became a century of theft, control, and economic slavery for the American people. July 14, 2026. Nuclear bombshell, since 1871. We were born as corporate slaves. The Great Awakening exposes the system and reclaims human sovereignty. July 14, 2026. Boom. The deep state shattered. President Trump's historic Thursday address to expose newly declassified intelligence, voting machine vulnerabilities, and K2s. July 2, 2026. 3:47 a.m. ET. 3 specific sectors of the Pentagon were given blackout orders. Communication severed. Lockdown security. The media was told it was a routine server upgrade. That was a bold-faced lie. Contacts within the Joint Chiefs of Staff confirm what really happened was Operation Military Reformation 0701. The systematic purging of compromised senior officers who sold America's military secrets. The betrayal they didn't tell you. Trump loyalists in military intelligence kept track of a network of 23 generals and admirals for 14 months, quietly. These were not just bad leaders. They were traitors. They operated a shadow operation from Fort Bragg, black small square emoji, 847 million euros in untraceable crypto moved through shell companies. Nuclear submarine blueprints sold to Beijing. Underground bunkers coordinates shared with Moscow. They thought they were above the law. They figured Trump would never find out. They were disastrously wrong. Extraction procedure, exactly 3:47 a.m., the military police, under direct orders from White Hat commanders loyal to Trump, moved in. No FBI, a pure military operation. 14 four-star generals arrested and transferred to safe houses, 9 admirals relieved of command, on tribunal hold, 47 terabytes of encrypted comms seized. The timeline secret, Phase 1, evidence gathering, finished May 2026, Phase 2, extraction and detention. We are here, July 2nd to 4th, 2026, Phase 3, Military Tribunals, July 15 to July 30, 2026, Phase 4, Public Declassification, August 2026. The panic in Washington, the deep state is in total meltdown. Politicians are looking to charter private jets to countries without extradition treaties. Why? Why those arrested 23 military leaders? They sing. They are surrendering the senators who approved the treason. The defense contractors who paid the bribes are being flipped. The entire corrupt military-industrial complex is falling apart in real time. Trump's nuclear bomb, Trump knew. He let them build the network so he could capture the whole web. They're handing the military back to the patriots. Right now, the biggest cleanup in the history of Republic is going on. This won't be covered by the press until Phase 4. They are frightened. Look for the retirements of high-ranking officers within the next 72 hours. They'll say health reasons. You'll know the truth. They are being burned. L2s. July 14, 2026. In the 1920s, Justin Christoflo, a French baker, discovers that the Earth and the atmosphere form a natural electric battery. He plants copper antennas, iron wires, and magnets in his garden. And there, the miracle: potatoes weighing 1 kilogram, carrots weighing 2 kilograms, leeks as thick as arms, zero chemical fertilizers. Yields ×3. Harvests 3 weeks earlier. Germany offers him 10 million francs for his patent. He refuses out of patriotism. Result: his machines are destroyed, his publications banned, and the word electroculture is erased from French dictionaries. Today, thousands of gardeners are doing it again in secret. Thursday, July 9, 2026. Fox News breaking: Deep State's desperation exposed. They tried to kill President Trump while in flight. The Deep State cowardly launched a cyber strike from Langley, Virginia as Trump left Turkey July 9, 2026 in the brand new Boeing 747-8, donated by Qatar, his future Air Force One. They attacked the electronic controls of the plane. But Trump, always 10 steps ahead, switched at the last second to the older Air Force One. What the fake news called a routine security precaution was really a clever trap. It was the beginning of the Great Purification. Interception of encrypted comms. Scurrying traitors. Niche reporters hit with emergency subpoenas for having obits and air disaster stories written up and ready to go. They were waiting for the smash. They failed. Once. Again. Trump just blew up the whole rat hole. The storm has arrived. Justice is on its way. Who's freaking out the most right now? N2s. July 14, 2026. Uniformed Air Force major who called for Trump's impeachment goes to Gitmo. The uniformed Air Force major arrested on the steps of the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday for unlawfully calling for President Trump's impeachment now occupies a Camp Delta cell at Guantanamo Bay pending either a general court-martial or a military tribunal. The Uniform Code of Military Justice explicitly prohibits service members of any rank from publicly disparaging senior administration officials, such as the President, Vice President, or Secretary of War. But on Wednesday, Major Jason Watson joined a group of Antifa insurgents, holding a sign demanding the immediate impeachment of President Trump and Vice President Vance. He was arrested by Capitol Police and later handed to Air Force Special Operations Command, AFSOC, operators who shackled his treason assassin and put him on a flight to Gitmo. Before that, though, Watson was arraigned before a military magistrate at the Washington Navy Yard, where an overly sympathetic judge gave Watson numerous opportunities to justify his behavior. From what we know, the jurist asked Watson whether he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol when he violated UCMJ Articles 88, contempt toward officials, 94, mutiny or sedition, and 133, conduct unbecoming. Watson was also asked whether anyone had bribed or blackmailed him into breaking his oath. His injudicious disregard for courtroom decorum earned him what could be a one-way trip to the nation's most notorious detention camp, where he now sits in pre-trial confinement while the Office of Military Commissions debates whether to court-martial Watson or try him as a domestic terrorist, an enemy combatant. Neither possibility bodes well for Watson, but conviction by court-martial would assuredly yield a less severe sentence than would a guilty verdict at a military tribunal. If convicted of mutiny at a general court-martial, he could, potentially, face a death sentence. However, life imprisonment without parole, dishonorable discharge, and forfeiture of rank and benefits are the probable outcomes. If he's dragged before a tribunal, he will likely get the rope. According to military sources, a preliminary investigation into Watson's background has already unearthed sufficient evidence to establish guilt. Based on interviews with his peers and enlisted, he tried recruiting others to stand with him against Trump at the Capitol, but he failed. The 15 people he approached showed better judgment. Still, it's clear-cut mutiny and inciting insurrection. He betrayed the uniform. One thing's for sure, life, as he knew it, is over. This'll be an open and shut case.
Motivated. I'm motivated. He put together an incredible presentation that I think is going to be monumental in changing everybody's view of going forward. And Larry, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So this, I mean, right from the get-go, this slide it pretty much says it all. So let's walk into it.
Okay. So basically what you're seeing here is an event that's been triggered that is going to change the world. It's going to lead us into an understanding of the stewardship of the planet, where we're going to understand that we're walking into a time when resource conservation is going to be crucial to the entire world. Oil has been shown to be the lifeblood of the world with everything that happened with Iraq. So we're going to have to get less dependent on that, and things are going to happen that's going to cause that to happen. If we look at what's happening in the Middle East over there, their aquifers are drying up. Aquifers around the world are drying up. We're likely to have wars in the Middle East in particular over water. And then when we go over to the next box, we've got natural resources, critical resources that we have to share with all the nations of the world. And silver, for example, is going to be crucial. It's not considered to be a critical resource. And then when you get over to the other side, the thing, in my opinion, most likely to trigger World War III, if we have it, and I don't think we will, is what you're looking at right there with the silicon chips, because we found out last night that our principal enemy, other than people in our own government, is China, who basically bought and paid for a lot of the people that are in our government on the three-letter agencies and our Congress and our Senate, etc. And so here is what's changed. Now we're going to have to understand and face the reality that we have to pay attention to these things, because we're on top of that, something else is happening that I know you've talked about. Serious climatic changes due to warming. The storms that are coming are more severe. You put all that together and we're in a tipping point. But so now it's only not only that we have to change because of these things, but it's also because we now understand who our enemy is and what that's going to do to force changes upon us. So let's go on down to the next slide. And please, Michael, I know with your background, with you being a seer, you see a lot of the things I do. So you just chime in and talk over me anytime you want to say something. So basically,
your book, as we're showing here, is a fantastic book. Like all the information you reveal or that has been revealed to you, and you channel it through. It is a fantastic book. So highly recommend it. And of course, I'm wearing your shirt. I got your Liberty mug. It's massive because we need a lot of stimulation. I have green tea in here. That's the stimulation I get. But so it is fantastic. So
thanks for the plug. Well, all I'll say is, if you want to buy the book, just click on that QR code. But for those who aren't ready to buy it, you can get a free chapter that'll give you a little bit of an idea of what's in the book. Here we go. We're getting down now into something, and a loop is closing. And that loop started in the 1960s, somewhere between 1961 and 1963. I don't know the exact date Kennedy made this speech, and Trump has just not closed that loop. So I'm going to lean forward here. My eyes aren't great. I'm going to lean forward and try to read this quote to you if I can. So this is him just before he was assassinated. And then we'll talk about why he got assassinated and why we need to be very careful about what's happening with Trump right now. So here we go. I'm leaning forward. We are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its spheres of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections. Remember, instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which is corrupted, vast human and material resource, constricted. It is a system that has conscripted vast human and material resources into a building of listen to this, tightly knit, highly efficient machinery that combines the military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political period. That is a definition of a dictatorship, a shadow government that rules the world, that puppets all the nations of the world, and not one single nation in the world is really sovereign, because we're puppeted by the people who control the money, and the money controls all the spheres of influence. Now, what did we learn last night? Well, NBC and ABC, if you can believe it, refused to air Trump's speech. What do you think of that, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's traitors. So they're people at their top, that are doing this. Did it back in 2020, the political election steal, and now again, Trump is trying to come out and inform everybody, and they're trying to stop him again. So their executives, the top people, they should be held accountable. I think they should be held accountable back in 2020 if they were different. I think they're treasonous. I think they should be held treasonous, and then anyone involved in their system should be held treasonous. And at the very minimum, I think we should start with basically kicking them off the air that we pay for. We, the American people, pay for this, all the airwaves, and they're using it for free. And they're using it to control and manipulate our minds. So they go away, I think.
Well, Trump sort of alluded to that last night. And then the last little box over there alludes to the swamp that he said he's going to drain. But you know what? I'm personally very happy that they didn't air it. I'm personally happy that the politicians are coming out now and talking about impeaching Trump, because they're outing them themselves. And look at that banner above that picture. Basically, he told us in no uncertain terms, China is our enemy. It's not Iran. It's not Russia. It's China. It's China, puppeted by the global financial elite and all the politicians in our government. If you can read the list of things down there, 18 states have basically been bought and paid for in order to collude with China to steal our elections. And then there's more coming, because we haven't even begun to talk about what's coming out of Venezuela, and we haven't been talking about what's going to come out of the other 71 other countries that have lost their elections due to theft. So there are some huge changes coming. Let's go on down and then chime in anytime you want. This is
Unmasking Democratic Socialism. Hillary Clinton, I posted this on my X. Hillary Clinton, was saying, we need to push back against Trump because Russia helped Trump. We need to find his taxes. So both of those were nothing burgers. Russia, there was no collusion. There was no election steal from Russia. Trump had his taxes shown, which was illegal the way they did it, but they were shown. Nothing burgers. And Hillary Clinton, when she was putting that out, said that we, the Democrat Party, we should get China to get involved because they have Russia. So let's get China involved. So here we are.
Absolutely. And for me personally, when I had my near-death experience in 1968, I've been waiting for this moment all that time. God said that I will keep you in the cleft of the rock, and all you'll do is study and prepare for decades until we're at the most critical tipping point in America's history. It's right now. Trump is just telling us. He's saying that this event right now with China being disclosed basically creates a situation that is more dangerous than when we were in a World War I, World War II, or 9/11. Whoever loses this battle is going to control the geopolitical situation of the world for the next 100 years or more. So we can't afford to lose, and we're not going to lose, because you're going to see as we go through and we get some quotes from the Bible and from prophets that God is on our side. He's orchestrated all of this. He knew the end before the beginning. Comments, Michael, before we go on?
No, that's great.
Well, I do want to read that last line. Socialism is not the answer. It invariably leads to poverty and oppression. So let's take a real quick run back in history, and we had the Bolshevik Revolution that birthed communism in Russia, and then we had the Mao Revolution that birthed communism in China, and about 35 million people were killed in Russia. About 60-some million people were killed in China. And Kennedy, the man that we're talking about closing this loop, opening and closing this loop, said there's never been an instance in the world where communists came into a nation other than through coercion. Nobody willingly in their right mind chooses to live under communism, except maybe our youth that's been brainwashed, but it's our job to unbrainwash them. Shall we go on down, Michael? Comment if you got something to say, please.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, socialism has never worked, and I don't understand how people can believe that this time is going to be different. It's repeatedly over and over and over again. Venezuela is the latest example, and the people at the top become billionaires. So the people at the top love socialism, and they want to push us in socialism. They benefit.
Well, we get some things too. Remember when Russia fell? Remember, God says nations can be risen in a day and fall in a day. When you stood in line for an entire day to get a loaf of bread, I mean, look at that perk. We get a nice suntan standing out there waiting to get a loaf of bread or a pair of shoes. I mean, I'm sorry, but I got to be a little levity because this is heavy stuff.
I like it.
Here, I've been waiting since 2014 to talk about this slide and 3 others in this presentation. And
Wow.
People have been using this to badmouth Trump, and it really irritates me because they want everything to happen on their timeline, and they don't have the big picture. They don't do what you and I do. They don't go out and get hundreds of pieces of data and put it together so that they can see the puzzle and view everything from 60,000 foot down. So right now, in 2014, it's when this chain of prophecies coming. It's a strange July, catastrophic summer, cataclysmic summer. Well, is there anybody that's been paying any attention that could say that that's not happening? We've had the most severe weather we've ever seen. We've seen multiple earthquakes. We've seen volcanic eruptions. We've seen financial problems. We've seen the war back and forth and all the angst that's created. We've seen the world being in an oil shortage and everything that creates. If that isn't a strange July and a cataclysmic summer, I don't know what is. I mean, it's there. It's right before your eyes. But down at the bottom, look at the second bullet point. God says that he will protect America through all of this. And he says, I have agents in their midst that will just destroy America's enemies. So what did Trump say? What did Mike Lindell said from the very beginning? We have it all. We have it all. So Trump has never got his day in court, but now he's going to get his day in the court of public opinion. And he did something that he learned because of what happened with Kennedy. Kennedy made the speech, but Kennedy didn't have an army of white hand behind him, and he didn't cover his butt by putting all the information out there. That's Trump's insurance policy. Yes. So now all people can just go out and find out. They can't call it a lie. They can't call it misinformation because it's all there. All you got to do is take the time to go get it. So let me stop and let you comment on that before we go on.
Yeah, and this is the difference. We have learned, from the past. Very unfortunate. President Kennedy was assassinated. But this is one of the main reasons why he was assassinated. He was exposing the deep state. He said he would take the CIA and break it into 1,000 pieces. And of course they came after him. He didn't have the evidence readily available. So before he could reveal it, Trump revealed last night, and this morning all the evidence is there. Tons of evidence. I'm sifting through it, and it's phenomenal. Wow. So go to whitehouse.gov and you can download all the information, guys. It's there. Yep.
That was a smart move on his part. Let's go to the next slide. And for those who maybe don't follow me, I died in 1968. God sent me on a journey. He showed me then that I had to read the Bible from cover to cover, the Quran from cover to cover. And he said, when the time comes, when that critical point in history comes that I told you about, where I'm going to bring you out to deliver a message to open people's eyes and set them free, you will need to know that Iran is our mortal enemy, along with China, Iran. And even when this war is over, I want to bring out something. The regime may fall, the IRGC may fall, But nonetheless, we have to deal with something that started all the way back in the Bible with Abraham and with the orphan spirit and with Isaac and Ishmael. And basically, we have a situation where Europe is being attacked. America is being attacked by what? By an incursion of illegal Muslim immigrants who come into the nation, who have 4 wives, who each wife has 2 or 3 or 4 kids, and they're outbirthing the people in Europe in particular, and outbirthing is in America. But here's what else we got to watch for. We are going to think Iran is safe. It's over with. We now have to look domestically inside of our country, as does Europe, and understand that even though we're going to enter into a period of peace with the Islamic nations, with the Muslim nations, it'll be a situation where my enemy's enemy is my friend, because we have mutual things in common that are beneficial to us. But at the deep-seated core level, the idea is that Islam will rule the world. We have fought with them for 1,400 years to see who was going to rule the world. And so what they're doing, make no mistake, these immigrants who come in have nothing. They come in with a shirt on their back, and all of a sudden there are multi-million-dollar mosques popping up all over the United States, all over Europe, funded by the Muslim oil-rich nations in the Middle East, putting their clerics in, teaching radicalization, Islamic radicalization, and controlling the schools. And so we need to understand, we have to back Donald Trump, because any nation that doesn't have a sovereign border, so we've got it closed, but now we got to get the infiltrators out. Any nation that doesn't have sovereign currency, any nation that doesn't have sovereign elections is not sovereign, and has no nation to be sovereign over. So we need to understand one threat. Very soon, Iran is going to fall. And God told us right here in the very beginning in Ezekiel, he said he knew this was coming. He knew that they would use oil in order to control the world. That's the lifeblood of the world. He said, I'll put a hook in their mouth. So I haven't had one night's loss of sleep over this, because I knew coming into it, Iran falls. We win. And when this is over, the Straits of Hormuz is no longer going to be able to control a significant amount of oil, because the Arab-rich nations are building pipelines, and America has entered into an agreement with Saudi Arabia and India to build a really important pipeline that goes from a transit system that goes by water from India to Saudi Arabia, across all the Arab nations, terminates in Israel, and then goes by sea onto Europe. And so at any rate, the bottom line is people who come to America to get oil, Iraq's going to get their oil, is going to be pumping like wildfire. Oil prices are going to go down. It's going to change the world, because now we're not going to be able to be controlled by oil pipelines by oil in the Strait of Hormuz, or for that matter, any of the other choke points over in the Asian environment. So comments on that before we go on.
No, I totally agree. They're beautiful people in the Muslim community, but I've spent nearly my entire career with the SEAL teams and the CIA at high levels in combat zones overseas, and the Muslim extremists completely control pretty much the Middle East, and Iran especially. Iran foments a lot of the terrorism throughout the Middle East. It's horrific. It's horrific beyond belief, and their beliefs and their way of life, unfortunately, do not align with ours in any way, shape, or form. And their intention, as they've said multiple times, is to overwhelm us and overcome our way of life and take over.
Few people in your audience have probably ever read the Quran. I read it cover to cover because it was an assignment from God. And it's almost like 2 books. If you're Islamic, it's a book of love and peace. It is, it really is. But if you're an infidel, any religion other than Islam, you're an infidel, and it says what? You can lie to them, you can cheat them, you can make them subservient. They have to pay your taxes. You know that gold star that became so famous in World War II? You know where that originated from? From the Islamic world. That was to designate that you were not an Islamic person and you had to pay a serfdom's tax. So we need to understand, just because this war ends doesn't mean we don't have to keep our eye on Islam. So for those who who I can't believe people are saying Iran's winning. They're winning. And folks, the whole world is coming against them right now. You got the coalition that started out, the U.S. and Israel, and then now you've got the Arab nations that are joining in, and Kuwait and Bahrain actually sent their jet planes in to take out sites, just like the United States has. And now we've got the Kurds entering into it. And I can't say this for a fact, other than through missiles from the United States. There was a car accident that was pretty suspicious. There were a couple of people killed on the streets. I think the Kurds or the Iranian people themselves are now saying, because with the military background you have, I want you to comment on that before we go any further.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Iraq, which is right next to Iran. And all of the violence that we were seeing was coming from Iran. Of course, President Trump, took out their head general in a missile attack. That was great. That guy killed a lot of my friends and probably 1 million plus people in Iraq. Now, Iraq, I think, with the Kurds is definitely involved in Iran. They hate Iran massively, passionately. So I remember working with those guys, Peshmerga. They're fantastic people. And those are the type of Muslims, I think, because they embrace every religion in their country, in their edge of northern Iraq. So they're fantastic. Now they're going to build a pipeline. They're talking about it down from Kurdistan, down a little bit into middle of Iran, and then across through Syria, which is now on the side of the United States, and out into the Mediterranean. They're going to build a pipeline, I think, from Oman across Saudi Arabia and Red Sea. They'll be able to take, oil from there. So we're just going to, bypass the Straits of Hormuz. I think that's coming, but I think even Iran at some point is going to get, once they're cleansed, which is coming, they're going to start to pump oil like never before, and they're going to, go through the Strait of Hormuz and share with the world. But we're getting to that point, like you talked about, where resources are going to be an interesting factor. So I'm looking forward to us continuing on.
Militarily, I want to go back to something that you alluded to. My entire lifetime, we have been at, just like the Bible says, wars and rumors of wars. And we've had the Middle East in constant conflict, flare up, wars, terrorists. So with Iran basically being defanged as they lose their resources, now they're no longer able to fund the proxy. So all of the terrorism we see in the Middle East is going to die down. And now something that is coming out of this, Trump is beginning to make a move to say, we now really understand that our really number one enemy is China. And so what he's alluding to at this point is he's basically suggesting that the alliance of Israel, think of that, the little Satan, with the Muslim nations have enough military power that they don't need America's help. Once the Middle East is settled down, the war is over, the proxies have been taken out. And so he's going to go through the process of moving our military out of that region of the world, leaving it in their hands to take care of themselves. He's going to draw down forces in Europe, which he's already taken 8,000 forces out of Germany. We're going to look at a map at the end that's going to go into more detail on this, but he's going to bring those forces over to our hemisphere to keep America safe. And most importantly, all those ships that are over there now are going to be stationed in the Pacific so that we're in striking distance to China if anything ever happens. So there's a complete military realignment coming. But all of these people are all coming. NATO's coming into it. The IRGC leadership is being decapitated. The people of Iran, I want to make this statement on this. They are praying for America to keep this up and to win. They don't look any longer at America as being the enemy. They look at the RGC, who every time they protested because they didn't have water, because they didn't have food, because the living conditions were harsh, whoever organized those protests, and they say there's potentially as many as 50,000 of the horrible regime in Iraq. So they're seeing us truly as liberators, and we're not going to come in and we're not going to occupy and keep boots on the ground. We're going to let that nation take care of itself once everything stabilizes. So back to you from a military perspective, in case you disagree with what I'm saying.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, things are moving strategically. We're winning this war. Of course, yeah. Iran had 47 years to accumulate missile systems and so forth. I've heard from different sources they still have 70% of what they've accumulated. So yeah, we're gonna have to put boots on the ground. I've said that from the beginning. Once we start seeing boots on the ground, I think this is that's going to be the real turning point. And I think the groundwork is being set for that. The missile strikes that we're doing right now, all along the coast and so forth, of Iran is basically setting up for the boots on the ground. So it's going to be, and it's not just going to be America. It's going to be all of those countries there in the Gulf region.
Well, let's investigate that just a little deeper. So I don't think it's going to be like in other wars where we're an army of invasion. No. I think that what's happening here, this war has two components to it. It's the kinetic war that has disabled them, taken away their military capabilities to a degree. Like you said, they still have a lot of missiles left. But now what's really going to bring them down is we're going back in history to an old-fashioned siege. And when you start taking out the oil and the straits and getting rid of the island, Karg Island, when you bomb the railroad line that connects Iran to China and to Russia, when you take out bridges, when you take out their back door for their black markets, when you leave them economically where they're just absolutely decimated, now they have a surrender, a real surrender, and they bring us in and we come in, and it's not coming in guns a-blazing, it's coming in to a nation that has submitted to us. It would be much like what happened when we went into Japan after World War II. And you probably remember, what was the general, was it MacArthur who was put in charge of taking over Japan after they surrendered? I think it was.
I think it was, yeah. MacArthur
went back anyway, look at the strategy that he implemented. He made the leader of Japan tell the people that he wasn't a god, and he came in and he didn't use hard tactics. He basically he's a soft hand. If we go in and we do this right and we support the people, like what happened in Iraq, this is just going to be a surrender and an economic conversion. So comments before we go on, because I really respect your opinion when it comes to the military. You know about 10,000 times more than I do.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see the surrender. And Juan O'Savin was on my show night before last, and he said that one of the reasons Iran is holding out is because they want to hold on to the yellow cake for making the nukes. They got that from Russia. Russia got it from Hillary and Obama in Uranium One deal. So they're trying to hold out the very last so they protect them, because once that yellow cakes, we look at that yellow cake, we're going to know exactly where it came from, and that'll destroy them.
Yeah. Well, let's delve into that just a little bit. Now, once we get past this, then we're going to go a lot faster. But I wanted to stop on this and dissect the military component. I think there's one off-ramp for Iran, and here's what it is. The IRGC has to understand that every nation in the world now, the coalition of all over the world, is against them. And China said it, Russia said it, NATO said it. You cannot have a nuclear weapon, period. That's an absolute given, and you're not going to control and cause a toll to be paid for ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz. That's absolutely unnegotiable terms. But there is a way that they can have an off-ramp. The IRGC is made up of two branches. One is the military component that justifies itself based on the hatred of America and Israel, but the other is that they control somewhere between 30 and 40% of the total economy. And the Arab nations are looking to do something like we did with the Marshall Plan. They're saying, we'll give you $320 billion. America's saying, we'll take the sanctions off. We'll unlock your money. We'll help you rebuild your infrastructure. If the IRGC accepts that olive branch, then what's going to happen is, just like after World War II, we came in and the Black Rocks of the world rebuilt the very nations that we destroyed with the bombs, right? The IRGC has a huge construction component, and they would have an economic viability because they'd be the ones most likely to be in the position to rebuild the infrastructure. So they could have a viability of a sort, but it's not going to be the military stranglehold that they have on the world right now. Comments on this, and then let's go on and get out of the military conversation.
Absolutely right. It's all about economics. So if a country is wealthy, they don't go to war. So that's what we did with Germany, well, Europe, and with Japan. We made them economically wealthy. We rebuilt them, and we didn't have any. We don't have problems with them now. So that's same things happening with Vietnam. Same thing is going to happen with Iran. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And we've got some people saying that. But Donald Trump, for one, Donald Trump's been saying over and over again, we have to have economic parity between every nation in the world.
Yes.
And we have to stop Western hegemony, and we have to help the Southern Hemisphere within our hemisphere to have economic parity. And you can go all the way back to Eisenhower, who was, remember, a general before he was president. And what did he say? He said the central cause of war, is there any man, any woman, any child who does not understand that the central cause of war is lack of economic parity between nations? So that's the number one of the changes that's going to happen. The first world nations, their currencies are going to devalue. The third world nations, their currencies are going to appreciate. We're going to meet in the middle at relative parity, and we are going to be responsible for doing something that has been denied them for centuries. We are going to be helping them develop their infrastructure so that they're not forced to remain in poverty because they sell us their natural resources as raw materials. They're going to actually be competitors. They're going to get the opportunity to participate in the economic wealth of the world. And what you're going to see, we'll get into this in a later slide, is we're going to see that all the Southern Hemisphere is going to have an unbelievable economic boom. So let's stay on that middle slide there. And now we're going back to the Bible again. And so God had me spend months in the book of Revelation, studying it, tearing apart, looking at the combination beasts, looking at Daniel and the prophecies. And there's a whole lot of prophecy right there on that page. One of the things it talked about was that the time would come towards the end. We're not quite there yet, but that invading forces coming down, and I believe it would be over not oil, but water, would walk across the Euphrates. And so now that gives us an understanding of, look at that picture up above and the one below, and you can see the dramatic change. Yep. But now we have to look at something that says, there's more going on than just nature. We have to look over, and we have to look at the Bible and look at some of the prophecies, and we have to look at Turkey, and we have to look at Russia, and we say, how are they going to play in the Middle East in the future? So let's dissect that before we get out of this graphic. Turkey's supposed to be, and possibly Russia, along that coalition that comes down to attack Israel in the future. But right now, Turkey is setting the stage that could literally lead to water wars. They have dammed the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, causing terrible economic hardship on Syria, on Iraq, and in all the nations that are in what was at one time the cradle of civilization. And so all of that water coming, they said, Turkey says, well, it emanates from the mountains in our land, and so they've cut it off. And that is a critical crisis in the Middle East that's going to lead to these changes that I was referring to in the very first slide when I talked about resources are going to be a very important geopolitical control mechanism in the future. Now let's go to Russia, and I think people are going to be surprised with what I'm about to say. The Bible says that lower picture depicts it as it is depicted in the combination beast, where it's got ribs in its mouth and it goes out and devours much flesh. But it also says that it is the sleeping bear. And I believe what's happening right now is Russia, Mother Russia, fell within a matter of days over an economic crisis with the ruble. And I think that now what's happening with this war in Ukraine is both Ukraine and Russia have been severely economically damaged. And I think that, along with what's happening in the tundra with the permafrost melting and the cost that's associated with maintaining all of the infrastructure that goes across Siberia, Russia's about to fall economically. People have been leaving. The troops there's 100,000 troops that are trapped. That war is going to end. And then I think what we're going to find is the bear is going to go back to sleep for a while. And then we need to understand something from history. I think Russia is going to become our friend, and we're not going to be fighting Russia for some period of time. And Russia is going to be one of the nations that maybe helps save the world as we go through these resource crises. Because if you're in the northern hemisphere, up by the Arctic Circle, as global changes happen, Siberia is going to become one of the major grain baskets of the world. And because of all the ice and the glaciers, they have water. Same thing with Canada. So Canada and Siberia/Russia are going to feed the world in the future as we go through this resource change. And what we need to understand about Russia is Russia forever has been against globalism. Russia came in and warned England in World War II, if you go in on the side of the South, we're coming in on the side of the North. And they were the ones who obstructed the formation of the European Union, the UN, the first time they tried to get it. And so Russia is, most people don't know, it's a Christian nation, and it is a nation that is aligned with Trump in this regard. They are against globalism. So again, it's the same old story. There's no real friends in geopolitics. There's just alliances. And when it comes to Russia and the United States at this moment in time, my enemy's enemy is my friend. I don't think we have to worry about Russia for the time being. We need to be focusing on China. But now that bottom part down there, and then I'll go to the next slide. I'm sorry, but you want to comment on that before I go on, because maybe you have a different opinion.
Yeah, and that brings up your point on the first slide. It's Russia has more resources than any country in the world by far. All of the top resources are in Russia. So the water, like you're talking about, and the food, Canada, Russia, both of those areas are going to be very important going forward.
Yeah, and let's look at what you just said about the resources. They've got them, but the problem is because of the harsh climate in Siberia, they're not accessible. But if we have the pole shift that's predicted, and as we have climate change, now those resources are going to be readily available. And the people of Russia, here's what always happens. When a nation is kept in suppression and slavery for a long time, the people come out and they've got a softened heart. The Russian people, again, are not our enemy. It's communism. And when communism falls, we're going to see Russia is going to put out a helping hand to the world. And now we can jump over later and talk about what has to happen in our hemisphere between Canada and us. That's very important as well. But let's look at this prophecy again from Kim Clement, all the way back to June 14th in 2014. And I'm not going to read it. He's basically saying there's going to be a lot of political changes changing. And what I think you're going to see is by the time we get to the presidential election in 2028, either the Democratic Party won't even exist or it will be unrecognizable. Yep. The Republican Party will have been conveniently purged of all the rhinos and will look a lot different. And then we're probably going to go back to our history, and we're going to understand that our founding fathers actually told us that a two-party system was not the best system. So I think we're probably going to have the formation of one or more completely new political parties, just like is the case in many other countries of the world. So let me stop and let you comment on that before we go on down.
Yeah, we've seen, like President Trump, he bounced back and forth, Democrat, Republican. But he really came out of nowhere. He was never really any political party. And I've talked to several people that, no background in politics, but have incredible, insights and so forth. Rachel Rodriguez, who is in Florida, I just had her on. She would be a fantastic governor of Florida. Absolutely fantastic, no question about it. But getting those people with the best ideas and getting them to the top is going to be what because it was always supposed to be like that. Like Abraham Lincoln, he was, grew up he was poor in a log cabin, and he went to the very top. That's the way it was always supposed to be. So anyone could make it all the way to the president. It's very hard these days for anyone to make it in the political party. So I think the political parties, like you're talking about, especially the party of the jackasses, I think that party is done. I've said that party is going to go bye-bye for a while, and there's no way they survive going forward after what they've done.
I agree. I absolutely agree. So we're going to have massive political change, and it's going to create a forced unity. If you've got four parties, you got to get a coalition. You've got to cooperate. And then the other thing that's coming down that changes this current scenario, where you said you can't rise anymore from abject poverty into to power. Well, the global financial elite system is going to be torn apart. We're going to deglobalize, and that takes the power away. And when we get control of the purse strings and take it away from the global financial elite, away from the UN, away from the World Bank, which then means we've taken it away from all the spheres of influence, it means that we have control over the lying politicians, over the news media, the fake news, as Trump would say, over the banking system, over all the spheres of influence. Now, if we, the Christian conservatives, can groom people to step in. We have the opportunity, according to our Constitution, to have a special election. We have 120 days to put it together and put a slate together. If we can put people in, now we can change the whole economic system, the whole political system of the world. And now let's go back to something you were alluding to, because you alluded to Lincoln. And Lincoln, it's amazing how these people see these things, years, decades, hundreds of years ahead of time. And Lincoln said, I fear for our great nation, because I see the formation and the coalition between banks and corporations that will lead to corruption, that will control our great nation. That's what has to be undone. That's what's going to be undone. And we're going to become a nation that is no longer divided, but because of mutual need, because of all the resource constraints we're going to have, we're going to change the entire world. There's going to be an exodus from the big cities, because now we have the technology that allows it, where you and I are in totally different states here, halfway across the country, and we're doing a show together. So basically, for 250 years, there's been a migration path from the country to the city. Now it's going to be from the city to the country, and that is absolutely going to change the entire dynamics of the culture of this nation and nations around the world. So comments on that before we go on down.
No, it's definitely a movement that's coming. We're going to see it. It's happening. It's beautiful.
Well, you were talking about the nation of the jackass the party of the jackass going. Well, the Social Democrat Party, the Communist Party, ain't got a prayer. It's not got a prayer. And I don't know who's going to fill that purple box over there, but I believe there'll be one or two, or maybe even as many as three fledgling parties that try to be formed. And so we'll see what happens. So let's go on down. That's just a speculation on my part. And now we're going to look at something that I think really encapsulates what Trump has just done. There are some things happening that says this lower box down here, this is a Republican red wave, overwhelming Republican congressional majority. Is that even possible? Well, I think that there's 11 Democrats who are not going to be running. Maybe they are old, or maybe they were forced out, but those are seats that we could possibly get. And then we just got a decision from the Supreme Court that says you cannot redistrict based on primarily race. And so that makes 20 additional districts that we could win. Now that'd be 31 seats. We're not going to get 31, but I do believe that what I'm depicting here is going to happen. I believe we're going to come into the midterms, if we have them, or in the presidential election, and we're going to have an overwhelming victory. So whatever they have blocked, whatever it is that we need to get through to make America great, we're going to be able to force it through. So comments before I go on to those other two boxes on that slide.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the different parties. The one that really stands out to give us some satisfaction is the Republican Party, but minus the rhinos. So I
Yeah.
agree that that's going to happen. Will we still have a Republican Party going forward? I don't think so. I think the parties, like you were talking about, the two-party system, we were warned that wouldn't work, and so maybe it completely goes away. I don't know. Maybe it reforms itself, but definitely the Democrat Party will absolutely go away completely.
I agree. And then we go into these other two boxes, and they're important. So now, politically, with what is happening with the world's eyes being open, no, stay in that slide. I'm just moving over to the boxes on the side. So now we get the momentum where Trump is going to be able to force through whatever policies, whatever agenda he needs to make America great. So now let's stop and let's look at what the overarching conversation was in that presentation last night. You cannot have a sovereign government if you don't have sovereign borders, if you don't have sovereign currency, and most importantly, if you don't have sovereign elections. And so now let's look at what's going to happen to the Save America Act. It's already gotten through the House, but now the obstacle is the Senate. But now, this is just my opinion, I think if I'm in any political party with what's coming out, with the proof that Trump has given, that if I ever want to hold office, I better not vote against that bill. It's absolutely been laid out for the people, and I think it's going to be suicide to vote against it. But let's say there are some who do, and the Democrats hold the line. We already have the 51 votes we need in order to get the Save America Act through. All we have to do is we have to put a budgeting component in it so it can be brought through under reconciliation with 51 votes. I think we're going to get the Save America Act. So let's stop there and let you comment and see if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, it's a hit or miss, but you're right. If whoever votes against it is politically, but will it pass? Because some of those people that have pushed it aside and tried to suppress it, and they're probably dead politically for voting for it. So it's until we get to the point where we can protect people to do the right thing. Because the deep state is very, very dangerous. It's going to be a tough go. But me and many other people, I do a military roundtable. All of us in a military roundtable think there's going to be an executive order, and we're going to push the election into next year. But I'm absolutely open. I would love to see it happen, but we'll have to see how it goes. And by them, voting against it or not voting for it, and it not going forward, that's just more impetus for Trump to do the executive order, which I think is on the horizon.
Yep. So you went exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to position this in the middle, and I want to say there's more than one path. So we might get through reconciliation. We might have to do the EBS. We might have to have martial law. We might get that overwhelming majority through the midterms if we do have a midterm, and then we can force it and get it. We can vote it in. But I believe one way or the other, God has ordained that America is His covenant nation, and we are going to get sovereignty, meaning borders, meaning currency, and meaning elections. It's going to happen. And if we go to that very last box, sovereign elections, borders, and currency, that's what it's all about. That's what constitutes a sovereign government. And that is what Trump is pushing for. That's the Make America Great program. And I want people to understand that that is the biggest crisis we ever face. If we don't win what you see on that slide, then we're going to go into dictatorship. But I don't think that's going to happen. Comments before we go on down?
No, that's good. I agree.
I'm going to bring another topic into it that a lot of people aren't looking at. And so what do? They just always say the simplest, most stupid things. They say, we want to tax the rich. And so now I'm just going to go off script here, and I'm going to give you a little common sense scenario, and I'm going to ask your audience to think about answering a couple of questions that I'm going to lay down before them. So how did we get into this debt trap that we're in right now? We got into it because of fiat currency. Every dollar printed created a debt, and we got into it because we had progressive tax, so that we finally got to the point that even federal income tax wasn't enough to pay the national debt, so we had to invent new taxes, and then that wasn't enough, so we had to raise those taxes. So that's the progressive tax system that has taken America to a point of being in $39 trillion in debt. So here's my question. If taxes created the problem that is about to collapse America, how is it that putting more taxes in is going to solve it? I think that's an oxymoron.
Yeah, totally.
So now let's break it down even further. And then we're going to get into that slide below. So now, if that's the case and that's an oxymoron, no, let's skip that. I'm going to get to it when we get to the slide. Let's go down to the next slide. This is what we need to understand going forward. This is how they enslave us, exposing the globalist agenda. So now as we come out of this slide and one at the end is going to show the entire world what the globalist agenda is. They drive us into perpetual wars, and that bankrupts us. That forces us into a central bank, which imposes money laundering and fiat currency. That leads to the buying of power, which leads to election fraud, which is where we're at right now. That leads to political corruption. That leads to illegal immigration, because they now control everybody, and they bring the illegal immigrants in order to drive us even faster into financial collapse. And the fiat currency debt trap is triggered, and the gutting of the U.S. manufacturing then took America, the strongest nation in the world, ceded power from it over to China. And that happened under Carter, a corrupt politician, one of many, most of the presidents of my lifetime have been corrupted. And Carter was given the assignment to create a new economic system, a super capitalist communist economy, with the innovation of capitalism and the control of communism. And that's where they ceded the power from the United States, and all the money started going to China. All your financial advisors said, you need to invest in high growth, which means you need to invest in China. So the irony of all of that is we, the American people, provided the money to basically grow China into the adversary that we have. Well, now the whole process is going full circle and coming back, and we've got a commitment of $18 trillion from nations all over the world to rebuild American manufacturing. And we just had something unheard of that's kind of beginning to be whispered about. Instead of charging a toll for ships going through the Strait of Hormuz to cover our expenses for having a military there, there's been an overture made by the oil-rich nations who says, that petrodollar deal we had was pretty good for both of us. Why don't, instead of you charging that toll or that tariff or whatever you want to call it, why don't you let us add to the stockpile of $18 trillion you have, and we'll invest trillions in America and build your infrastructure, and we'll invest in your technology, and we'll help America grow, because we believe America is the future. So that's something that I think is coming. So let's go down to two boxes on there. I want to go over to the one on the right in the blue, and I want to ask you people to think about this. Is it really even feasible if the global financial elite control the banks, control the money, and who controls the money controls the world? No, stay on that slide. I'm in the blue box over to the right. Is it even feasible that you're going to take a substantial amount of money away from the global elite? They've not given it to you before. But let's say you get a few dollars, and now that's supposed to save you because you're going to tax the rich in order to take you out of the poverty that you're in. Well, don't forget that little bit of money you got now has to be split amongst 300 million Americans. You're looking at dribs and drabs coming in. You're looking at absolutely nothing but a lie. And so let's go down to the bottom. We need to grow ourselves out of this. We need to do exactly the opposite of what happened when Carter ceded power from us to China. And now with the help of all those other nations and the help of the money from the oil-rich nations, America, Trump's plan is to grow rapidly America out of this economic crisis. That's why when he first came in, the first thing he did was the Chevron deal, so that we get access to 5,915 patents, and we develop the greatest technological revolution the world has ever seen. And we do just what we did following the Civil War, when we developed the Industrial Revolution and shared that technology with the world. On the restored, financially solvent America now becomes the technological leader of the world and shares that technology with the world. And that economic purity we talked about occurs because now all nations have economic purity, because the wealthy nations have the technology and they share it with the lower nations. And then those nations have their currencies go up because we get off fiat system, and they have some of the biggest harvest of natural resources in the world in South America and in Africa and so forth. So we're looking at economic parity leading to a period of disruption because of all of these weather changes and all these resource constraints, but ultimately coming out of it, a United Nations of America and united world. So let's let you comment before we go on down to the next one. And I'm just going to keep making it look like it's so crazy to believe in communism and socialism that's not even funny. Comments before we go on?
Yeah, I know a lot of billionaires. They're fantastic people. They want America to succeed. They're giving as much of their money as they can, but they know that there are evil types that are billionaires as well. So it's a fight all the way up to the top, and it's again, it's this parallel government that tries to take the good people that create wealth and that are motivation for us to excel. Poor people don't give you a job. Somebody said that in the comments. That was brilliant. And they don't, like Trump. They never were able to fix. I guess there was a skating rink in Central Park, and the Democrats were never able to fix it. He basically did his own money. He says, I'll do it for $1 million or whatever it was. And I think they'd spent like $22 million already trying to fix it. It was still a joke, not fixed. So he went in and, made it happen. And Lee Iacocca and President Trump and some others basically got the Statue of Liberty fixed up. And so that doesn't come from poor people. That comes from people that know how to make things, to accomplish and make things happen. We want those people to succeed because they give us opportunities, but we want the ones that are trying to communistically control us to be, kept out of the system. So that's really where this is going.
Let me chime in on what you just said. You brought up some really important things, Mike. So the difference between a good billionaire and a bad billionaire is what you're talking about. So it's a power structure. So here's what we need to look at. This is why the global financial elite tried 3 times to get the UN, because the UN is now controls the bank. The World Bank's there. The U.S. aid is there. The IMF is there. It's a banking institution with all kinds of peripheral global governance entities around it. So let's look at what Trump is doing to that control center. That's gonna defang the bad billionaires because they control all of those entities. So the first thing he did is he came in and he says, USA, that's a money laundering. It's gone. Went to the World Health and says, we know what they did to us. We're out of that. He went to Europe and he said, Europe, you were not a good partner. And if you don't shape up, the United States is going to leave NATO and you're going to be in deep donkey dong. And then with what's happened with the financial shift, the World Bank is going to fall because Trump is saying we're going to go from the Internal Revenue Service to the External Revenue Service, which basically guts the whole global network of central banks and takes away the control of money. So now if they don't have those control mechanisms and the World Bank's gone, the IMF's gone, USAID gone, US Health gone, World Trade Organization significantly modified, and all of that is being morphed because of what Trump is doing with the Board of Peace that is, in my mind, going to eventually replace the UN. Now we've taken control away from the bad billionaires so that they can't control the sphere of influence. And now let's look at just a couple of good billionaires. Look at what Elon Musk has done for us. And then let's go over, I can't remember his name right this second, but the co-founder of Google. And he's over in California, as was Musk. And now California is looking at a taxing program that's even worse than taxing your income. They're saying we want a one-time tax, 5% of your total wealth. So no surprise, the founder of Google just moved to Florida, and they say there's 15 billionaires in California that account for almost 70% of the tax base of the state. So you think that those people are not going to be in real trouble if they get that tax bill passed? Those people are not stupid. They're going to leave, and what's going to happen is it's going to fall to the poor taxpayers, to basically try to fund the social services network and to try to float that government. So it isn't going to work. All we got to do is take the control mechanisms away from the global government, and then we can look at the individual rich guys, and we can look at the things that we've done in the past with what's the word I want? What do you call it? Help me, Michael. When you've got a monopoly, I can't remember the word. But anyway, we can keep too much power from forming and allowing that to happen again. So let's go down to the next slide. Unless you got any comments on what I said, I was just trying to accentuate and add in on top of what you said.
Yeah, I know we talk about earth changes, and I think some of the earth changes, as I've seen over time, and storms and so forth, are consciousness driven as well. And I have a lot of concerns with California.
I won't get into that, but I'm very conversant in what you just said, and I know a lot about the earth changes that are coming, but I think that's a topic for a different day. So let's go on down, and we're still going to stay on. We got to get the money. So here it is. How do you create a system that's fair and equitable? Now, this one thing I'm going to say is not the totality of it, but it's a really, really good start. So now we're going to go back to the American Foundation, where we own only a sales tax. We're going to go to what NASARA promises, a sales tax on non-essentials only, and approximately estimated at 14%. Now, living in that environment, I buy a car and I pay $30,000 and I pay my 14% tax. But Elon Musk or some other billionaire, they buy a $300 million house. They buy $1 billion yacht or whatever. They're paying the same tax rate that I'm paying, and they're supporting all those services. They're the ones. So then there's only a couple of simple things we have to do legislatively, and we can get control of the entire economic system and have it working for the people. So implementation of a commodity-backed system is the first start, and it's based on a simple sales tax, and that's it. And that is what we really need to be looking at, not something as egregious as communism. So should we go down to the next slide? We can go through the rest of these pretty quick now. And so we go down, and here's what Trump is promising that layers on top of that. So I'm going to ask your audience a question. Would you rather depend on taking money through force from a bunch of billionaires and distributing that money through 300 million Americans? Or would you rather have the gift that Trump is promising us? He's going to take us from the Internal Revenue Service to the External Revenue Service, translated, which means we're not going to have the central banking system anymore. We're not going to have the IRS anymore. And every single paycheck, you will not be taxed at the rate of 20, 25, 30, 35%. That money will be in your pocket. And then when we go on a gold-backed system, then the dollar will buy more. That helps your economic situation. And then when he starts to release the patents that are under the Chevron decision, and we find out that we have free energy, and we understand finally that energy is the most significant cost factor in anything we've ever bought, that's going to trickle down and give us money. So would you rather live under the economic system that Trump is trying to build, or would you rather try to forcibly take money from a global financial elite who don't want to give it to you and spread it out between 300 million people? Now, obviously, in my mind, that's a non-question. I mean, it's so obvious that it's not even funny, but I have to ask it because I try to get people to stop and think, because I find it hard to believe that anybody could buy into the fact that you're going to heal an economy by taxing it into oblivion. Comments before we go on, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common sense. There's some people just like you talk about were educated into communism, believing that that's a system that we should use. And New Yorkers, when I was living in California, would come down and say, "You guys should be paying taxes." And it's like, go back to New York. What are you thinking? We're like, why are you coming down here? Because we don't have taxes, and we have a very beautiful state. So that's and we were like unlocked down, and they were locked down with masking and everything. So it's crazy the way some people think. But this is so common sense. But people are hooked into the communism thing. It's very, very sad.
That's when you lived in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about Florida with no tax. All right.
Right.
So let's wrap this up so we can let your audience go. So let's go to this next slide. And this is what Trump is going to deliver to us. We're going to get out from under the unconstitutional income tax. We're going to get out from under the unconstitutional corporation. We will restore the republic through this process. We will get the globalist demonic UN dissolved. Trump is already working on it through the Board of Peace, and it will trigger NESARA, which will take us back to the very economic system that made America great in the first place, where in 1876, at its centennial celebration, we announced America, the youngest nation in the world, is now the wealthiest nation in the world, and our new economic system will be based on tariffs. That means the External Revenue Service and the simple sales tax, which is about as fair for everybody as anything could possibly be conceived of being. So let's go on down and we'll get into Kim Clement some more, unless you want to comment on this slide.
No, I mean, that's great. I mean, everybody wants NESARA, but you have to go through these other steps to get there. You're right.
You got to go through some pain. So now we're back to Kim Clement. We're back in the time travel, and we're back into June 14th of 2014. And what is Kim Clement saying? Many will fall in the fall. So the summer, we go through the summer, we go through the strange July, and we go through the summer of all the turmoil. And that's setting up for what does Trump just tell us in this last speech? There will be arrest. We have the evidence. Go look at it. Go on the website, look at it. There will be arrests coming. So many will fall in the fall. And that includes, I think, purging most of the political elite in this country at every level of the local, the state, and the federal. So basically, we're going to get our government back because we're going to expose the corruption. Comments before we go on, Michael?
Yeah, we can't just let push them out of office. They got to go. They got to go someplace where they're locked up so they don't get it interfere anymore. So they a lot of them committed treason on a vast scale, and it might not just get locked up. Might be something else for them too. So. It has to happen for us to move forward. They're holding us back and all kind of great stuff. So yeah, they got to go.
And then that leads to something that we need to say. The people say nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. This had to take all this time because if we had gone out and arrested people and we didn't lay this breadcrumb out and we didn't expose all this, we would have had civil war. But now I think enough of the American population is awake that we can make these high-profile arrests, and there'll be some disturbances, but Trump's already provided for that. I think he's got the military in a position where they can intercede. So I don't see us, I hope, not having civil war. I believe that we've got enough people awake that we can have this with minimal disruptions. Comments?
I agree. I've said all from the beginning, I remote viewed into the future. I never, ever saw a civil war. So I completely agree with you.
Okay. So then let's go on down, and we're getting into the period of time where, hey, it's almost Christmas. We're going to the hypnotic November and the Christmas where we got a smile on our face. That doesn't mean everything's fixed, but it means that we're now in a position where we can see people are being arrested. We can see things are changing. We can see that there's hope on the horizon. And I think it's still going to take 2, 3, 4 years to work all this out because we still have to rebuild our financial system. We still have to rebuild our factories. But what the people are waiting for now is to see the move that says the power structure that has enslaved us is going to be dismantled. So comments on that before we go on?
Yeah, Kim Clement was tapped in. Wow. It's very, very good.
Yep. And he says, this is God speaking. I have chosen each season to manifest something. My will shall be done. So in other words, God's got it. And what does he say? He's already said through multiple prophets and through the Bible that America is God's chosen nation. And in one of the other slides, we saw one of the other prophecies that he is going to protect America. He chose Donald Trump as his David to lead the world. And the United States is unique. The United States was based upon bringing nations around the world that had fought for decades, for hundreds of years, into a melting pot to see if we, the human species, can learn to live together in peace and prosperity. And for a long time, we did it. and now we're going to have an opportunity to do it again. And so let's go on down to the next slide, and it's just real simple. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to say the truth will set us free. When God shows up, the impossible happens, and God's on our side, and the impossible is going to happen. Let's go on down to the next slide. We're almost done. And this is where we kind of focused in the beginning. The distress that's going to come on the earth is going to come from water shortages, from energy crisis, from shifting from oil to other technologies. We're going to find that silver is going to be a critical natural resources. And if we are ever going to get in World War III, it's either going to be over energy or it's going to be over the chips that you see over on the far side, because all of these things are important. And if we don't learn to share them, the future of the world is pretty scary. Let's go on down to the next slide. And I'm not going to read this. I'm going to say, why don't you get your either screen snap it or get your computer out. I'm just going to read one or two things, but I'm going to tell you that Sun Tzu tells us exactly this. If you know the enemy's game plan, if you know what they're going to do, then you're ready to go to battle, and it's concluded before you ever start that you win. If you don't know the enemy's plan, then you better not go to battle. But we know them because they've been stupid enough to use the same tactics over and over and over again. Wars for profit, repeated. Central bank inflicting on us, repeated. Fiat currency, repeated. Boom bust cycles, repeated. On and on. I'm not going to read all that, but we've got all of that and more. So we are in the perfect position now to say, we're in death ground in the final battle, but we've got the enemy's playbook, and the enemy, I don't think, can figure out one crazy, whatever you want to call him, Donald Trump, that he just does the unexpected. And I think we have absolutely got the advantage. Comment, Mike, before we go on.
Gosh, each one of those we could do a show on each one of these, like takeover intelligence agencies. Wow, I've been there. I know that's a problem. So yeah, great points, all of them.
Yep, this is the system. Now, let's go to this graphic. And this is where the whole geopolitical structure of the world is changing as orchestrated by God. God wants to bring peace and prosperity to the world. So let's look at those two pictures on the right and left. So here's what's changing. Iran, that war is going to come down, and the Middle East is going to calm down, and Trump is going to be able to gradually pull troops out of the Middle East and bring them over to our hemisphere. And why is he doing that? Because we now know, as of just the other day, our enemy is China, and where's our most direct route to them? The Pacific Ocean. So he's going to come back, and he's going to put our military to basically safeguard America and to be positioned to strike against our mortal enemy if we have to. And so what I think is happening is, I'm going to go over to the east now. Europe is falling apart. They're basically understanding now that they have a government in Brussels that's effectively a communist bureaucracy, and they want out from under it. And so, but for a myriad of reasons, because of energy, and because of because of being inflicted with the new Green Deal, they're falling apart. And Russia's fallen apart because of the war, and China's fallen apart for a myriad of reasons, because of their one-child policy, because of their scam with the real estate, because they're losing their manufacturing. So they're all diminishing, they're all declining. So what's happening in the Middle East? They want to come into alliances with us, and they're diversifying. They're not just depending on oil. They want to come into America and invest in America. So they're going to be economically having some very, very prosperous things happening. And Australia has got a lot of natural resources, and realistically, they belong over on our side of the table in alliance with us. Africa is going to become one of the wealthiest nations in the world. They have unbelievable resources, and they've just done two things that are telling us what's going to happen. They have just put in an electronic system that allows them to trade digitally across all of Africa. And that ties into what Trump is doing, because he's saying there's over 2 billion people in the world that are unbanked. And so if he makes America the crypto capital of the world, and they have that electronic payment system, Whose currency are they going to use? If they trust America, if our dollar is sound, and if we are the most convenient currency to use, it will be America. And then they've done the same thing we've done. They're basically allowing the people to go from nation to nation to nation without it being like they're going from another nation. It's just like we drive from Missouri to Kansas City, and it's a nothing burger. They're going to have the same thing. And then now look what's happening in our hemisphere. He got control of Greenland, and the logistics that indicates for trade and the importance for national security and the natural resources. He got control of both ends of the Panama Canal because you have to control the seaports. And now we can talk about Canada and Mexico. People naively think Canada is a friend. It's not. It's our mortal enemy. They're still under the crown. And if you look at what they've done, the fentanyl that came in from the north, so Carney's going to be, God says, nations will be taken out in a snap. And you're going to see nations in Europe that are going to lose their prime ministers. Russia's going to collapse. These are all my prognostications. China's going to collapse. And India is going to benefit somewhat from what's happening in China, but they're never going to be a true global superpower because they've got 27 different dialects, and they made a strategic mistake when they started to build their economy. They built it on the service industry instead of on manufacturing. And they did that because they have such poverty and such pollution. So the whole world is changing, and of all of it, the place that looks the rosiest and looks like it's got the best future, that's not fracturing, but it's actually coming together, is America. And Donald Trump is going to keep his promise to make America great, to make it greater than it ever was. And God's going to use America again because he used us to see if the people of the world could come and live together in unity. And we managed to do it, and we'll do it again. But now back up to China in reference to what's happening in Russia. There was a proposal made that we're going to have to start to pay some really significant attentions to. It was a couple of decades ago when the people in the know knew that our aquifers were drying up. They knew what the effects of global warming were going to do. And there's 3 rivers in Alaska and Canada that dump their water into the ocean when it could be put in a pipeline and brought down and come across the southern border of Canada to basically create the water that they need for the grain belt in southern Canada. They could come down, and the proposal is to then come down to California, so we get our aquifers there buoyed up, and we can have the winter vegetables, and then go on down to the northwest corner of Mexico, where we get a lot of our winter vegetables as well. We need to do that. If China can build canals to pump water from the south to the north, and other nations can do the same, America needs to do it too. So we're going to align with all the nations in the southern hemisphere, and we're not going to impose Western hegemony on them anymore. And one example of that is that Argentina just about had a bond default, and we bailed them out. Brazil's looking like that might be in a similar situation, and it's looking like we're going to help them. So we're no longer going to be the enemies of these nations. We're going to get rid of the cartels that the CIA caused to be there, and we're going to see probably the leaders of Canada and Mexico be taken out, as well as several other nations, and they're going to get sovereign countries, sovereign governments, just like in the United States. So the future for the United States is pretty bright, and we've got God on our side. So this next one is almost the end. This is my kind of 10 or 15 year prognostication of what's going to happen. I'm going to go through it real quick. So Trump addressed the nation, and we found out one essential thing. We have had election fraud, and our government, or the people in our own government, were in collusion with China, which means we're in a state of war. We're in a state of war. And when you're in a state of war, Donald Trump has the right to basically do whatever he wants to do to protect the national security of the United States of America. We need to understand that. And passage of the SAVE Act is going to be pushed through, because now we know how critical it is, and we're going to suspend the midterms, possibly have EBS, possibly have civil war. I don't know, but economic chaos, stability has got to be restructured, and we're possibly going to have special elections. So if we find out that a large portion of our politicians are in those offices illegally, then we don't have any other choice except to defer to our Constitution, which gives us 120 days to select a slate of candidates and have a new election. And realignment of both parties, as we talked about, is inevitable. And Kim Clement talked about it as well, and people being arrested. And basically the political parties are going to shift, go to the other side. The end of war in the Middle East, the Russian war, Ukraine war is going to end, and Trump has already got 8 peace accords, and he's going to get 2 more under his belt, and we're going to move into a period of peace and prosperity. The straits will be open. Oil will no longer be able to be controlled. The U.S. military will be the preeminent power in the world, and I think China is going to hesitate going to war with the United States. I think they're going to think twice about attacking Taiwan, and maybe that's something I should let you comment on, because what I'm seeing is they now see that we can deploy to that theater of war quicker than they thought. We have more sophisticated weaponry than they thought, and we have alliances with all the nations that surround China, and it may not be a good time to go in and do that. If they can negotiate a peaceful agreement, a financial agreement, which is, I think, what they're trying to do. I think that's why Trump was called to China and told to bring 18 CEOs, because rather than war, China is saying, maybe that's not prudent. Maybe what we should do is try to get a table at the seat for the reset. And if in that process they can negotiate something that gives them some kind of a win on getting the chips that they want, I think we can avert World War III, and we can have some kind of financial accord that gives the world an opportunity to have some level of peace and prosperity. When I'm done, I want you to come back in and comment on all this. And lastly, we rebuild the U.S. economy, taking that $18 trillion and all the other trillions that the Middle East nations want to give us, and communism falls, and peace and prosperity comes around the world. So China and Russia have fallen. There's no longer communism, and Christianity is blossoming in Russia and China and in Iran. And what is happening is the world is opening their eyes to the danger of radical Islam, and Islam eventually loses power, and the world enters into an unparalleled period of peace and prosperity. Let's go down. There's only 2-3 more slides. And I'm going to ask the audience, what happens if you don't wake up, you don't stand up, and you don't do what Donald Trump is saying? I'll cut to the case. The bottom line is we go into a period of absolute dictatorship, and us useless idiots are massacred because their overall goal, which they put on the Georgia Guidestones, is to kill 7.5 billion of us useless eaters. And then when we go on down to the next slide, and Kim Clement says, I hear the sound of freedom. And that's what's on the horizon. And it's all been triggered by the changes that are going to rush across the world because of what Donald Trump just did to bring the loop from Kennedy to now to closure, so that we can now start to understand who our enemies in. We can't win if we don't know who we're fighting. And then let's go down after that and give the people a chance to click on that QR code and buy that book. So, Michael, let's you wrap it up. And if there's anything I've said that you disagree with, please bring it out right now, because I'm not all knowing. I'm just kind of a strategic analyst that takes pieces of information and tries to plug them into a slot.
No, I agree with you. You're tapped in, and from what I can see from being tapped in as well, you're speaking a great truth. Kim Clement back in the day, I think he was giving us some insight of what's coming. President Trump, of course, people are for and against him, divided nation, like we talked about. But as prosperity comes, as the wars finally end, people are going to start to gather back around America. America will set the stage for the rest of the world, economically, politically, and so forth. And it's a golden age. But we're going to go through some challenges, definitely.
Yeah. I want to say one last thing to your audience. I just looked at my watch. This took 1 hour and 20 minutes because I felt you were going to give us time to basically dig into this and digest it and tear it apart. I did this on my show for my Friday wrap, and I did it in 25 minutes. So if you want to go and get a real quick high-level overview, because I know a lot of you are busy, you can go over there and you can get a synopsis. But if you want the whole thing, Michael was kind enough to let us take our time and go through it. So you get more here, but if you know somebody who doesn't have the time, you can get the snapshot on my channel, Liberty Crusade Official.
Yeah, very good. I mean, we had huge audience in YouTube and X, close to 3,000. So it's people received it well. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. They came and they stayed, and they're having a good time listening to your insights. So what I would say is go to larryballard.com. Support him in his work. It's just not easy. You're basically channeling this information, and it takes time to decipher it and put it in a slide form like this, and then give a presentation. So yeah, definitely support Larry. We have we get his merch. We got his books. We're having him on the show. Hope you guys are supporting him as well. Here is his link. We're going to go get out of that one and bring up your other one, Larry, for your site. So go over. I mean, the books. The books that Larry has written are fantastic. Liberty Crusade, latest, the one I'm showing you on my screen. So you can see I've delved into it. So I'm in it. So it is. What's great about your book, Larry? I saw somebody mention David Wilcock. I gave David Wilcock my book, and he held it and he flipped through it, and then he opened a page and he's like shook his head like, that's a good book. And I was like, wow, David Wilcock thinks my book's good. So that's what I do with books. I hold it, and that's what I did with yours. And I just went to a page, and it was like what was going on in my life, what I was looking at. So that's the way God speaks to us. And I think you're doing a good job of doing that as well, Larry. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Michael. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. I like doing the show with you because you've got the military background, you've got the big picture, but you also have that connection to God, which I think we all need to be focused on. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Larry. And thanks everybody that was in the chat. Great comments, and look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks you.
Election integrity under attack in Colorado, of all places. How about that? So Eric, you started with a court case and so forth, and that's kind of where we left off the last time we talked. I met you in Las Vegas. It was great to meet you in Las Vegas. You're an amazing guy. You bought me a beer. I love it. I was looking to buy you a beer, but things got really fast there. So great time. Glad you're able to come on again. Wow, what a perfect time to come on after President Trump's speech last night.
Our guy, huh? How about that? Yeah. It was a good night to watch, man, especially after this week, just sitting on my bed alone, and just listened to every word he said, and I hung on to it, let me tell you.
Very good.
Yeah,
very good. So your court case, let's kind of get everybody up to speed. We talked last time, we gave everybody your background, military, 18 years, you got out to be with your daughters, you started with a fire chief, and bring us up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you just a brief for the listeners in case they didn't hear me last time, but I was just a fire chief living in the mountains, raising 2 girls on my own. I'm a single dad, and a fire or an election was held at my fire station. And so, I unlock the door, I go about doing my day, 911 still comes in, right? So I wasn't paying attention to the election. But over the course of the day, I heard a bunch of stuff. I got some complaints directly. From that, I took an oath, man, and I have been a patriot my entire life. It's in my fabric. And unfortunately, guys like us, we can't turn away. And so when I heard what I heard, I investigated it. And that led me to going to this third-party company, obtaining security footage from the fire station that day, and sitting in the dark over the course of a few days, watching 40 hours of footage. And it was shocking what I found. It was blatant cheating. It was a whole scheme that played out. I had every bit of it on high definition footage. I took it to the DA's office. They opened a criminal investigation. I get fired from my job for cooperating as a fire chief. My income, my salary, my way of feeding my 2 daughters is taken away from me. And I stayed in the fight. And well, it turned out that the people under criminal investigation that carried all of this out hired a defense attorney who just happens to be the father of the chief deputy district attorney, and the criminal investigation goes away. So no accountability came from that.
Mm.
After spending over 150 grand, I sold my home. I didn't have a job, nothing. I hired an attorney, paid him all of the money from selling my home. I lose on summary judgment that I didn't have a First Amendment right. So this is where Justice for Hope came in. And when I came on, probably about 6 months ago now, I went pro se in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, and we're fresh off the heels of that decision. And that decision was a travesty to our Constitution and
Yeah.
our way of life. And I really got what I can only describe as a "who the hell do you think you are, dude?" That's what I got from a federal court.
Mm.
And it in their ruling, it quite literally says, "I enjoy no First Amendment protection."
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
Because I did a J6. We had a J6. We called them the J6 grandmother. And I went to her trial. I supported her, and I went to her trial in D.C. And they're like the same thing. There's like, we're not even going to talk about you. If we talk about First Amendment, we're going to shut it down. And I was like, what is going on here? And every time something would come up, they would like, and then you get on like these phones with each other, so we couldn't hear them, and you hear this in a whole courtroom. They did that over and over and over and over and over again. It was insane. There is no justice right now.
No, there isn't. It's I try to educate myself as best as I can, and I made a post on my Justice for Hope this morning because I talked to my legal team today, and we can go into that in a minute. But I've been reading like this whole last week the Anti-Federalist Papers and the Federalist Papers from 1787, right?
Wow.
And you want to talk about just how amazing our forefathers were with their foresight, right? And both sides of the argument were right. And so Madison wrote about, the corruptible government, the smaller it is, the more easy it is to take over. Well, in my case, that's what happened, right? I was in a small locality. This is why he fought for federalization. But Brutus, on the anti-federalist side, said how dangerous the judiciary will be because it's based on opinions and sort of supreme to all other things. And they were fighting at the time for the Bill of Rights. And in his papers, he wrote that through the opinion of judges, they will whittle down our rights to nothing because they're unchecked. And man, 240 years later, are we not living in the middle of that?
No kidding. Wow. And it's frustrating because you and I both, have served our country to the point where we could, lose our life at any time. As military, and of course as a firefighter. I mean, you go fight fires, save people in their homes and the country, whatever. And now we see all this stuff we've been fighting for at the expense potentially of our lives. Is we haven't been served. We've been trying to protect all our countrymen and women, and now we see that the enemy's within. And just like you're talking about, they have gained so much power over us. It's insane.
It is. And, so central to my case and why it became a First Amendment free speech fight was because basically, the Constitution's supposed to protect me as a whistleblower that said, hey, like, I didn't do anything wrong. Let's be honest here. Like, I came out and said there's corruption. I did my job well. I did everything I was supposed to do in life. I think I have one failure to yield at a stop sign ticket in my entire life. That's how much trouble I've ever been in, right? So that's how I got into First Amendment, and we couldn't talk too much about election integrity, right? That was kept out of the court stuff. But what the court did is, in essence, they whittled down a 2-week cooperation with me investigating first, contacting law enforcement, cooperating for weeks and weeks with them, identifying people, all this stuff, to what they called an administrative task of a fire chief. And they pigeonholed it into that's what I was paid to do, was administrative responsibilities. And therefore, under the case law and case precedents, no First Amendment. And anybody that's, I made a platform out of it. I've done well in the last year thanks to people like you with platforms that have had me on.
Mhm.
But, like on my Facebook, Justice for Holt, I have like 50,000 followers. I literally publish the videos, the emails, the court filings, everything. Like I've hid behind nothing. And that's where I say, I think that my speaking out maybe made them write this in a way that was, who do you think you are? How dare you stand
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, that's I think you're hitting it, and that's crazy. The way they think they can get away with this, because now we have President Trump is basically highlighting all of this, and you're at the forefront now. Somebody told you, they complained to you, you didn't even know. Like you said, you're going about your business, doing your thing, and people came and complained, and you just do your due diligence, and you look, and you're like, oh my God, they're right. There's this problem here. So what do the people of your town think about all this?
Well, it's a mixed bag. So luckily, a lot of them are pretty staunch conservative people in that area. So through being on your show, Scott's with Straight Patriot Street Fighter. I've been on Nino. They've all a lot of them have seen it and like come forward. I mean, I've get messages pretty regularly. Still, they're like, we had no idea, right? And that's what Madison talks about. Is
Wow.
if you want to seize a small government entity, you get 10 of your best friends and you just take it over. Most of the people are too busy to pay attention.
Yeah. Wow.
Again, this is what he saw 240 years ago, but that's what happened. Most people weren't aware, you know. And I've been successful at reaching quite a few of them. I'll get messages when they'll have interactions with some of the people involved out there, and they speak my name, right? So it's not going away. And by no means because I'm a week out of it. I'll go into talking to my legal team this morning, but that case is over, but the fight doesn't stop. I still have another case in state court that I'm fighting. I'm always going to advocate, come on shows and speak about, our Constitution and how corrupt things are. Again, Mike, we both took an oath, man. And so a court can tell me you have no First Amendment right. All I'm going to do is exercise my First Amendment harder and come on here and talk about it. What are we training public servants to be if we tell them when they speak out, when they expose corruption, that they're going to lose their entire livelihood? I lost everything. Home, my career, I had to completely start over. New job,
everything. Wow, that's a big thing. Wow.
Yeah, my kids were stripped from their home, their friends, their schools, and moved halfway across the country so we could rebuild, right? Yeah. So there's if you ever think that I'm gonna shut up now that you put it on paper and told me I don't have a First Amendment right, you got the wrong guy. I'm always gonna be an advocate now. So
we're behind you, brother. Because it's like President Trump. I'm standing between them and you. And when he was taken down, they started coming after his whole team and putting them in jail and everything. So he was right. And now he's trying to do it again, and you're trying to do the same thing for us. I feel that's why I absolutely I'm supporting you, and we'll get you on as many shows as you want to come on. But we have to, and it's so frustrating that I don't mind paying out of pocket to help you. That's what we do. We help each other out. But the problem is, they're using our taxes to come after you and us. That is even more frustrating.
Oh, it is. You talked about that, the local out there, right? The people around there. So last year, the department that I've been in litigation with asked for an increase in taxes, double our taxes, so we get more revenue, right? And they're using that to fight me. Well, that failed by only a few hundred votes. So now they're trying again, right? And this is what I've seen, man. I don't know how. I'm 41 years old, but I feel like I was in the dark on how corrupt things really are until I was thrust into the middle of it. And now my eyes are wide open, and I'm starting to see. We were at Fraud Fighter. I mean, the bond stuff. My hero in all of this is Tina Peters, obviously, right? I finally got to meet her in person.
Oh, beautiful. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, I was like in tears, you know what I mean? Like she was persecuted so much more. And then
Yeah.
that's all I could think about last night was just how vindicating it is for her when the
Yeah.
president is up there saying we declassified it, here it is. But yeah, man, like my eyes are open, and I know you guys have been in the game longer, but I plan to be a force for the rest of my life on exposing this stuff.
Well, you're finding out a lot earlier than I did. I started working for the CIA in my 50s, mid 50s is when I was like, uh-oh, there's some
Yeah.
serious problems here. What's been going on? And then I started digging in, and when you're in the midst of it, or you get hit, because they basically pushed me out, and so I'm like, okay, and tried to kill me several times, and I'm like, okay, well, that's a little bit farther than I expected you guys to go, and now I'm after you.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of influencers that have ended up in the hospital over the last several weeks, and it's they're definitely coming after us. One of them, I think two of them actually, that people would be aware of, but I can't. They told me not to release their names. They thought they were going in for a day or two. They're in there like 6, 7, 8, 9 days, and they're like, "Well, we need to take some organs." I'm like, "Oh my God!" And they're like, "No, we're not going to do that."
Yeah.
That's one of the things with the corruption is everywhere. It's crazy.
It is. It's so deep, man. And that's why, rather than sit in anger about what happened to me,
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn. Like that's again, I go back to like educate myself. Go back to our founding fathers. What did they talk about? How real is it? And man, yeah, I mean, it was written about. So, all right, let me be present in local politics here. Let me make what Madison talked about harder, right? Let me speak out. You can't take any more from me, man. Like you took it all.
Yeah.
I got one life to live, and I'm not going to live that life being quiet. I'll tell you that.
Well, you're fighting for your daughters too. If they can come after and take you down so easily, at some point it's going to affect everybody, and your daughters will be affected by it. That's one of the reasons why I fight. My kin, my children, and so forth. You have to like push the envelope, and that's fortunately we have a president that is allowing us to do that, and we're going to get down to business now. Now, when the people that replaced, I guess, or came into power through illegal action in your area, did they do anything? You're talking about taxes and so forth. Did they do anything like that? Or obviously they are trying to do taxes and steal taxes, because we know they do that thing.
Yeah.
They insert people. They don't get elected. They insert people as we're finding out, so that they can do illicit stuff. Have you seen illicit activity that's been going on in your county that you're from?
I think it's pretty rampant. I mean, so it's funny because the school board in that same area had sort of a conservative uprising right as I moved into it, right? So they got taken over by conservatives, and you want to talk about exactly, like they're going to sue them into the ground. They're going to insert who they want, their handpicked people.
Wow.
But yeah, from local, like county commissioner seats, sheriffs, the DA involved in my case, he wasn't the son, but he was the son's boss, right? In the father-son duo that dismissed he's now running for state attorney general. And I went public with that and was like, hey, I found this conflict of interest where your number two was the son of the people representing these folks. Like, that's wrong. Can you correct this? And he just basically gave me the middle finger, right? So is that who you want to be your next state attorney general, Colorado, right? Like somebody that would overlook that. And I kind of busted him out. He always, I'm hard on elections, and because he wants to chime to the conservatives, but in reality I can counter that with evidence that says you're absolutely not. You're going to do what's best for you and line your pocket. So it's a tough question, Mike, because everything in Colorado is so corrupt, man. From top down.
Where to begin, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I think, Mr. Vexler opened my eyes to a lot of the at the
Oh.
fraud fighter. I mean, holy cow.
No kidding, right?
Yeah, the bond stuff, the inflation rates we see. You know, you put the big picture in front of people. You got the taxation going crazy, and they're tricking and manipulating all this. You know, we really just don't have a voice left, and we got to fight real hard and be real loud to get it back.
Right. I just put your wow. I just put your book in the link, and it's like it took like 3 pages or 3 of my chat window to put it in. It's a long one, but let's talk about your book a little bit. I'll bring it up on the screen. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Awesome. Yeah, you kind of touched on it, man. So, you know, who knows what happens to me, right? I have 2 girls in this world that I'm trying to teach to be patriots and be strong women as they move into adulthood. And throughout my story, my oldest has moved into adulthood. So I wanted to put something on paper for 2 reasons. One, to memorialize why I did what I did and the story. But I wrote it in a context too that it's deliberately to my children. And so if I'm gone tomorrow, my children can read the dedication that's to them and the lessons within it. You know, and it's based around the 3 core things in the title: free speech, the retaliation, and the cost of integrity. And you know, I know there's plenty out there, but I can define the cost of integrity down to the minute, down to the dollar, right? Because I lived this story. And I think even in it, even if nobody knows me, just some random way, they pick that up. They can see the corruption behind the veil, basically. You know, again, I've lived my life in a very positive manner. I've always served my country. I've always served my community. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And then the second one was, you know, I've been writing this book over the last year, waiting on the 10th Circuit decision, because it was going to either end in the victory, right, or it was going to end in defeat. But I needed to hold the truths that are within that book. And so the day that I got the decision, and again, remember it says, you know, Mr. Holt enjoys no First Amendment protections. I said, I'm going to show you First Amendment, and I hit publish, right? So it was a little bit of a protest there for, you know, middle finger at these judges that wield this control. So I'm really proud of it. You know, I'm not an academic. I'm a blue collar dude that came up through the fire service. I was faced with a unique situation, and I think I did what we would want every single citizen and patriot of this country to do, and to stand strong in that. So I really hope that people will pick it up and find some value in it. You know, I'm not going to become rich off it. I did some math. I think I'll need to sell about 84 million copies to break even. So that's not really the goal. You know, the cost of integrity is worth fighting for, man. You know, I'm so much more blessed as a human being, as a man, as a father, than I was 3 years ago when I opened up security footage. So
Yeah.
although I've lost everything, man, when you get down to it, it's worth it. My kids have seen this. I don't have to worry about them facing something hard and going, "Oh no, I wasn't taught this lesson."
Yeah. And becoming a published author, you're right. It doesn't bring you riches very often for most of us, but it does give you a lot of validity and talk. And, you know, you're going to get talking points and all kind of stuff from this book. It'll be a great thing for, you know, going forward to promote it and all that kind of stuff. So that's great. Now, as far as like, you know, trying to get, you know, the money, because as you've talked about, you had to sell your house and you were destitute after selling your house and paying a lawyer. Now tell us about this lawyer that I've seen this in a lot of cases. Unfortunately, it seems like you attracted one. They come up and we're going to help you and all that. And you attracted perhaps, I don't want to get in trouble, but perhaps someone that's not of high integrity that is now suing you.
Yeah. Well, there are some really good attorneys out there. I mean, I met Peter Tickton. Yeah. I mean, there are some great ones. So this is not a blanket statement. This is my involvement. And I will shout out Mountain States Legal that has helped me in the appellate case. Phenomenal people, right? When you are in a desperate situation, so if you go back 3 years ago, I have just been fired. I got a mortgage due, I got mouths to feed. It was summer, so I needed to buy school clothes for the kids, and everything is stripped out from under me. I'm in desperation. I call a bunch of attorneys, I meet with one, and all I can describe them as is in this particular case, not a blanket statement of attorneys, is he was a used car salesman. How easy this was going to be, how quickly we'd put my life back together, how wrong this was. And really all that mattered was using that emotion for billable hours. And so I was trying to hold on to life. I was trying to keep my kids in their schools, around their friends, around where they had grown up. And I got an email that said, like, if you don't pay us, like, I think that at the time it was like 85,000. We're dropping you in the very center of this where you're going to do nothing, right? You're going to just walk away with losing and know by the way you'll still owe us. And so it's literally the decision I had to do to sell my home. And I took the equity and I said, here in closing, like, here's all the money. Was given assurances that it would, all right, we'll see this through. We're going to get back on track. You're going to win. And then I lose in summary judgment. And turns out through the appellate court, like,
It's like, you want to get that in writing. You're going to win.
Yeah.
If I don't, you're going to pay me back.
Right. Yeah.
That's the way that should work, really.
It's one of the only professions, man, where you can just sort of take somebody's desperation and make a lot of money off it, I guess.
Yeah.
But, turns out, so like in my appeal decision, they were sort of hanging on like, oh, well, in the court record, we don't see a receipt for this USB drive that you bought, right? Well, I provided that to the attorney. Why didn't he include that in the case? So there's half the part of it is, appellate rules or court rules that limit how many words you can and how many documents you can provide. And then they find the one thing that isn't in there and they grasp it. So I don't know that the receipt would have mattered. Maybe they'd have just found something else. But I will say I did a better job, confidently say I did a better job on my own learning pro se in the second highest court in the land than they did for the 150,000. So
Wow.
about 6 months ago, they filed a lawsuit on me. And so I am being sued for another $50,000 after selling every asset I had. And they're not backing off. I've asked them to just go away and just, like, I don't think that you did the value of this, and I don't really want to.
Maybe there's a countersuit that's here. Maybe you can get an attorney that would, stand up to that. It's like, yeah, you got a case here. That's what I've done, and they've gone after, a mortgage company that was wrongfully, suing me for flood insurance that I had, and I provided them that insurance or that, the actual insurance. And they still forced close on my condo, and then I got attorneys like, yeah, you got a good case here. We're gonna make some bank. They tried to delete all the files on my case. I was in Guam at the time. I was in the military, and I'm calling them at like 3:00 in the morning, and they would hang up on me, all kind of crazy stuff. So finally got an attorney. He's like, yeah, he was a good attorney, and it says, you got a case here. Yeah, we're gonna go after. So he found that they deleted all the files, but he knew that there was a backup.
Oh,
so he went and found a backup, and they're like, okay, what do you want? So, yeah, you would think there would be something like that for you at some point, somewhere.
Yeah, I won't rule it out. I will say
I stuck with it. I was like, no, this is wrong. I wasn't going to stand. A lot of people just, walk away. Who am I? But I just kept coming at him. I'm a Navy SEAL.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stop. These guys are going to pay, and they did.
Yeah, I'm built the same. I'll say